Hello.
Good
Hello.
afternoon. Good afternoon. This is Mr. Davis.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Amber Jackson.
All right. This is Rick Cruz, Chair of the Public Charter School Board. I'm going to begin our meeting now. If I could get the high sign from our team and board members that they can hear me. Excellent. And I believe you're all unmuted. So welcome to our first ever virtual board meeting. And I know we all wish this were under other circumstances. This is new for us as it is for all of you, but we wanted very much to continue on with the business of the district while making sure everyone is safe. As always, I'm joined by our board members, Steve Bumbaugh, ricarda.m.ganjam, Jim Sandman, Naomi Shelton, Leah Crucy, and our vice chair, Saba Bireda. They are all unmuted at this moment, so I think we can all participate. I want to first acknowledge the unprecedented situation we're in, as well as the extraordinary effort that our schools have made to set up, amongst many other things, distance learning programs. I also want to acknowledge the hardships that this situation places on both students, their families, teachers, and school staff and leadership. And again, I want to acknowledge all that school staff and leadership has done to support a whole host of needs from our families and our students, including but not limited to meal distribution, and, which many of our schools are doing in conjunction with DCPS. Tonight, I'll ask you all to be patient with us as we hold this meeting virtually, even if some things take a bit longer than normal. I'm going to play the role of IT coordinator for a second and make sure that everyone is familiar with the instructions with respect to using Zoom. Everyone on the line, save our board members, are currently muted. Briani, our meeting court administrator at PCSB, will assist by unmuting individuals one at a time when it's their turn to speak. For those participating in the matters before the board this evening, either school leaders and their representatives or the list of public witnesses who have signed up already, if you're using the Zoom app, we'll be asking you to raise your hand, which you can find under the tab under the tab labeled participants, and that will allow us to unmute you. For those that are joining to represent schools at different times, we ask that only one person speak at a time. And if you're not speaking, we'll ask that you be muted. And again, as usual, our public witnesses will have 2 minutes to speak. I'd like to ask Scott Pearson, who's been working closely with representatives from education and other agencies across the city, to share a bit about how PCSB is supporting our schools during this time, and some of the priorities that the Public Charter School Board has with respect to the COVID-19 response. Bree, if you might unmute Scott for a few moments.
Thank you, Rick. So as Rick said, this is unprecedented. None of us have ever been through any of this, and so we're all in uncharted waters. We began communicating with schools in very early March, asking them to prepare for this eventuality, and it's been very heartening to see how schools have risen to this challenge. Our expectation, we have communicated to all schools that we have an expectation that despite the difficulties and the challenges, that every one of them find a way to continue to engage with their communities in teaching and learning. And we've been in touch with every single LEA, and I'm happy to say that all of the LEAs are engaged in that. PCSB at this point is 100% telework. Our work does go on. And in addition to our regular priorities, I have outlined for the team 6 broad priorities with respect to how we respond to this coronavirus pandemic. The first is to support our schools any way we can. And one of the most significant ways that we think we can do that is by facilitating a lot of experience sharing. Schools are learning every day how to do this better and better. And we think we can serve all kids by making sure that every school and every school leader has the benefit of the learning that is going on at all the other schools in DC, as well as some of the best practices that we're seeing from around the country. The second priority is recognizing that our entire accountability structure for schools needs to be reconsidered this year in light of the cancellation of state assessments and the significant interruption in on-site learning. So accountability revisions. A third is to be really collaborative, good partners across the city to collaborate citywide to solve citywide problems. What we've done with food in terms of standing up food distribution across charters and DCPS, where every school that is a citywide distribution center, I think is an example of that. And there are many other challenges that we're working with our partners at the DME and OSSI, Department of Health, and other agencies to work on behalf of families and children. The fourth is to find ways to effectively oversee the distance learning that our schools are engaged in. The fifth is an internal priority, and that's just enabling us to do our work effectively in a telework environment. And hopefully a successful board meeting tonight will be an example of delivering on that priority. And then the sixth is communications, both to schools and to community members and families. And that's really about communicating essential information that needs to get out, as well as communicating what our schools are doing so that people are aware of that. So those are guiding our work, and I'm really heartened by the way the entire staff has risen to this occasion, commensurate with what we're seeing from all of our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, for providing that update. Before I turn to our public witnesses this evening and our agenda, I wanted to start by thanking the founding groups who have submitted new charter school applications this year and which we'll be voting on this evening. Many of you have spent years bringing together students and families to shape programs and develop school models to benefit the DC community. Thank you also to the educators, community leaders, various partners who are supporting the founding teams. I know our collective goal is to improve educational outcomes for DC students, and I'm very proud of the work that all of you have done, in no matter what the votes lead to this evening. Like the applicants before us tonight, every public charter school goes through a rigorous process with the Public Charter School Board here in DC. Our goal is to approve school models that support all students and improve student achievement. Charter schools are public schools operated using public dollars and overseen by volunteer boards, with the majority of those board members being our neighbors that live in DC. I know that many citizens in the city have opinions on how many public charter schools we need, but the role of this board is to look at the data, assess the need, and evaluate the quality of the proposals, even in trying times such as these. Before we approve any new school, there's a rigorous process that applicants must follow. They need to demonstrate need, an ability to succeed, a commitment to quality, and a dedication to openness to all students. And we expect applicants to consult with the community and be a good neighbor. And we also look at the changing demographic patterns in the city. This has been our commitment in the time I've been on the board, and that will continue being our commitment going forward. Some say that we open too many schools. We don't believe that is true. In fact, we have a very rigorous process. In the time that I've been on the board, we've received and reviewed 35 applications, but only approved a little more than a third of those. Our forecasts show that the new seats we've approved amount to well under half of the forecasted growth in school-age children. So that is just a little bit of a context for the decisions we'll be, or the applications that we'll be voting on later on in this meeting. Now I'd like to open it up to the public witnesses that have signed up to speak this evening. Bree will be unmuting you. If you didn't sign up by sending your name to Bree before this meeting, everyone may submit comments to publiccomment@dcpcsb.org. So we've got, I believe, 12 members of the public who would like to make statements this evening. I'm going to ask first Aaliyah Ferguson to raise her hand in the Zoom app or press *9 now. We'll be asking you to stick to 2 minutes. Please, again, state your name and organization. And again, we'll be starting with Aaliyah Ferguson. Bree, do you know if she's on the line?
She's not. I don't see her.
Okay. Well, we'll create another time later on in the meeting to come back to her. Next on this list is Suzanne Wells. Again, press *9 or raise your hand in the Zoom app.
Suzanne Wells is in the is on the call. I am going to unmute her. Her hand is not raised, however.
Okay, if you can find her.
Okay. Suzanne, you're unmuted. Oh, I don't think she has.
Okay.
Okay.
Suzanne?
We can see her.
Yeah, I saw her name pop up.
But she's muted at this moment.
It appears to be muted.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want me to read my testimony now?
Yes, you have 2 minutes if you want to state your name and or any organization you're with and your comments. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Suzanne Wells. I'm the president of the Ward 6 Public Schools Parent Organization, and I'm testifying about the vote the Public Charter School Board plans to take this evening on the opening of 4 new charter schools. 2 of them are planned to be open in Ward 6. In May of 2019, the DME issued a facilities assessment of new public charter school applications. The DME raised concerns about approving any new middle schools or high schools because our city already has a significant number of middle and high schools operating with low enrollments, has available empty seats, and a relatively limited number of middle school and high school students. The concerns raised last year by the DME are valid this year. Our city especially does not need any new middle or high schools. Our city already has 49 high schools and adult education programs, many of them with enrollments around 300. Our city especially does not need new middle or high schools in Ward 6, where we have quality seats, and the city has invested hundreds of millions of dollars to renovate Eastern High School, Stuart Hobson, Jefferson Middle School Academy, and Elliott Hine Middle School. I hope you hear from people in Ward 7 and 8 this evening about the redesign efforts at Anacostia and Ballou High School that will lead to expanded career academies at both schools, and last year's opening of Bard Early College High School, where students earn an Associate of Arts degree in 4 years. The same concerns can be made for the elementary schools. Wards 6, 7, and 8, where the elementary schools plan to open, have many available quality seats, and new schools are not warranted. Beyond the lack of need for new schools, I seriously question the wisdom of holding a vote this evening while we are in a worldwide pandemic and Washington, D.C. is essentially locked down except for essential services. Nobody has a crystal ball and can say with certainty what the economic impacts of all this will be. One thing you do not need a crystal ball to know is that when this is over, Washington, D.C. won't be in a situation with a budget surplus, and the city's resources will be greatly reduced. We now have schools closed through at least April, standardized testing suspended for the year, schools focusing on feeding students who rely on breakfast and lunch being provided at their school. And students, Briani, did you have my testimony?
Yes.
Can they get a copy of it so they can see the rest of it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wells. Next on our public testimony list is Stephen Foster. Again, for Stephen Foster, either pressing *9 or raising your hand in the Zoom app.
Can you hear me?
Oh, Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you. You have 2 minutes. Please introduce yourself and any organization you're representing.
Sure. My name is Stephen Foster, and I'm speaking on behalf of Global Citizens Public Charter School.
Thank you.
I'm excited to speak in support of Global Citizens Public Charter School. I've been in educational leadership in Ward 7 and 8 since 2009. My hope is to share my direct experience with working with the founder and CEO of Global Citizens, Dr. Natalie Smith. I first met Dr. Smith, formerly Dr. Arthurs, in my role as assistant principal at Maya Angelou Public Charter School. At that time, Dr. Arthurs was tasked with delivering leadership, professional development, coaching, and ongoing support to all administrators in the middle school and high school. Dr. Arthurs individually led each administrator through a regimen of assessments designed to identify areas of strength and areas of growth, aligned to the key areas in Paul Bambrick's leverage leadership: data-driven instruction, planning, observation, and feedback, professional development, and school culture. Dr. Arthur's biweekly professional development and one-on-one coaching sessions were delivered with a level of candor and expertise that allowed each administrator to confidently address areas of growth. It also allowed us to raise a level of engagement with our teaching staff because we started to conduct ongoing observations and debrief meetings. Our administration team was working closely with Dr. Arthurs and resulted in a more consistent protocol for observations and feedback, and provided us the opportunity to develop more cohesive, positive, and trusting relationships with our teaching staff, which in turn supported us in closing the achievement gap that our students were experiencing. After supporting the administrators at Maya Angelou Public Charter School, Dr. Arthurs was selected as the head of school at Selah Public Charter School, the district's only Hebrew language immersion public charter school. I was able to witness her use the same strategies and principles she introduced to me as she led Selah Public Charter School to become a Tier 1 school. As you are aware, Global Citizens Public Charter School has the ambitious goal of immersing students in the Spanish and Chinese languages, along with focusing on social justice and whole child wellness. I cannot think of a more qualified or skilled individual to lead this effort. The District of Columbia will be a greater educational space for the existence of the school, and I highly recommend your approval of this charter. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Foster. Next on our public testimony list, Dr. Elfreda Massey. Dr. Elfreda Massey, if you would press *9 or raise your hand in the Zoom app, and Bree will unmute you.
Elfreda, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Elfreda Massey, a member of the founding board of Global Citizens Public Charter School, and also former Chief of Staff and Interim Superintendent of the District of Columbia Public Schools. First, I'd like to thank you for continuing with this meeting in spite of the difficult situation that we and the nation are facing due to the health crisis. I do hope that your families and you are all in good health and good spirits. I am calling in to offer my support for the school, and specifically to inform you of my confidence, my high level confidence in Dr. Natalie Smith, the school's founder and CEO. Research tells us that effective principals are the key to strengthening teaching and learning in schools. I believe that Dr. Smith is uniquely equipped to implement and lead the school because she has a strong record of success leading a dual language immersion school in DC. She has varied experiences providing professional development and training to teachers and principals around the country, and is very skilled at building and sustaining positive relationships with students, all staff, not just teachers, and community leaders. Natalie's passion for starting a Chinese Mandarin immersion school was evident when I met her 4 years ago. I was one of the persons who encouraged her to pursue her dream of providing a stellar education program for students in the District of Columbia. I am confident that the leaders and staff of this school will inspire and prepare the next generation of brilliant global citizens. I believe that our multi-tiered system of supports will ensure that every student who attends our school, regardless of their age or grade level, will receive appropriate supports and interventions to meet their academic and social emotional needs. At each tier level, classes will have highly qualified teachers who provide differentiated instruction and small group instruction inside and outside the classroom, as well as research evidence-based interventions. At all levels, we will have additional staff such as interventionists, special education teacher, and an English language learner teacher to support staff who speak Mandarin and Chinese. Natalie has coached school leaders in the district on how to successfully implement multi-tiered systems within their schools. We need more schools that serve students through this model. I look forward to continued work with the Global Citizens Public Charter School and its families. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Dr. Massey.
You're welcome.
Next in public testimony, Cadence Early. Cadence Early, *9 or raise your hand in the Zoom app, and Bree will unmute you.
Cadence Early, you are unmuted.
Hi, my name is Cadence. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Cadence, and I am a high school freshman, and my sister and I are speaking on behalf of Global Citizens Public Charter School.
Hello, my name is Anaya, and I'm in 7th grade.
For our testimony, I will be speaking in Chinese, and she will translate in English. 我们都在2013年开始学中文，这是我第7年学中文。
We both started learning Chinese in 2013. This is Cadence's 7th year learning Chinese.
我们觉得学中文在很多的方面很影响我们，对我们有很多的机会。
Learning Chinese has impacted us and opened many opportunities for us.
学中文让我们把别人认更突出。比如说，我们在申请高中和外学的时，他们都很惊讶我们说中文很好。
Speaking and understanding Chinese has allowed us to stand out. For example, when applying to different programs, the schools and companies remember us and are impressed that we can fluently speak Chinese.
甚至在小的时候，我们用中文交朋友和帮助别人翻译。
Even at a young age, we were able to use our Chinese to make friends and help others translate.
最后，我们在日常生活用中文有很多的意思。
Lastly, incorporating Chinese in our daily lives is fun.
有更多的是我们每天用中文。我希望你们可以考虑我们的经验和在你的课程加中文课。
There are many other ways that we can use Chinese daily. We hope that you guys will use our experience to consider adding Chinese to the curriculum. 谢谢你们.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you both. That was like the best part of my day so far. How are you both keeping up with your Chinese while virtual learning? Are you able to do that this week?
Yes. So I am constantly in contact with my Chinese teacher. We FaceTime. At the school I'm at, I'm in the boarding community along with my teacher, so I'm able to speak with her in school and outside of school.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for making the time this evening. I know it's
Thank you.
It's an interesting time. Thank you both. All right. Next on the public testimony list, Anaya Early. Again, *9. I'm sorry.
together.
Gosh. Okay.
Yes.
Easy. All right. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Then we have next Candace Davis, and I believe Ayana Belguda testifying together. Again, it's *9 or raising your hand in the Zoom app.
Okay, we have Candace Davis here. I'm unmuting you now.
Hi, this is Candace Davis. I'm a former vice principal from Ingenuity Prep. And now that this coronavirus has suspended classes indefinitely, we are even more concerned about the poor leadership at IP. On one hand, this pandemic has been a blessing in disguise for several students in this Ward 8 community who come from stable homes with lots of love and structure. These students now have peace away from the daily trauma that they experienced at IP, and their parents are able to teach them more than they've learned all school year. On the other hand, however, several students are definitely suffering at home right now due to neglect, abuse, harmful exposure, or just lack of mental, physical, and emotional stimulation. So what does distance learning look like for these underprivileged students, and how are leaders preparing teachers for their return? We know for a fact that this school's leadership team does not have the capacity to properly receive our babies back to school whenever that time comes, because Will Stetzer has blatantly refused to acknowledge the fact that he doesn't understand the needs of at-risk communities. In order for IP to fully be prepared, the entire executive team needs to be replaced by those with credentials and experiences related to serving students who suffer from poverty and trauma and or have level 4 special education needs. Once leadership is qualified, they will quickly discover the need for extensive support from mental health professionals along with research-based systems and strategies that protect the learning environment for those students who do not present the same level of need and should be progressing at the rate of their peers in higher performing schools. Since we know that Scott Pearson's assumption that Ingenuity Prep leaders are, quote, on their best behavior every minute of every day is false, we recognize that providing you with sufficient evidence of continued malpractice is not enough for you to save our students. Therefore, we are asking that you seriously evaluate the process you follow to hold schools accountable. If analyzed with fidelity, our hope is that you see your system is not protecting and serving students at IP. More importantly, we have reason to believe that several charter schools serving at-risk students are suffering in the same way, while others are just equipped with caring, qualified leaders who are resilient enough to perform under a failed system. In closing, since November, we keep hearing that you are following the systems and processes in place according to the law. However, we serve a sovereign God. Therefore, we know that systems, processes, and laws can be changed. So we are here to do whatever needs to be done so that IP leaders are held accountable and students are safe.
Thank you. Will Ms. Belguda be testifying as well?
Yes.
Bree, can you open up Ayana Belguda's line?
Ayana, I'm unmuting you now.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. This is Ayana Belguda, a former vice principal from Ingenuity Prep, here again to share the most recent violations and safety concerns since our February testimony. The following information has been shared with us from current teachers, staff, and parents who continue to reach out to us as they do not trust CEO Will Stetzer and Board Chair Peter Winnick. It was reported that Dean's List, the behavior reporting system, can have over 50 entries in just one day, which mainly includes students eloping and fighting. Specific examples of recent behaviors include students ages 5 to 7 punching each other in the face so badly it caused extreme bleeding and bruising, and students running up and down the K2 hallway ripping bulletin boards from the walls. Just weeks ago, a teacher was placed on administrative leave for protecting himself from a violent student. The, quote, positive place has been reported ineffective due to adults' inability to de-escalate students when they enter the room. The K2 self-contained classroom is only servicing students from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. The schedule will not fulfill requirements for students with more than 15 hours, which violates the terms of their IEPs. As of late, the second grade inclusion classroom has no special education teacher. Related service providers and special education teachers are unable to fulfill IEP hours due to heavy caseloads and literally no space in the building. Middle school principal Jasmine Allen illegally removed a dedicated aide from a 6th grade student to assist with teaching and behavior support. Even though your audit report revealed high retention rates, leadership is still planning to retain students without sufficient data. During a meeting with parents to address OSCE's investigation, a rightfully frustrated parent voiced many concerns and questions. In response, she was dismissed by Special Education Coordinator Joseph Carter and threatened to be banned from the building by Will Stetzer. Finally, as mentioned in our most recent email to you, we have concerning recordings and conversations in chaotic classrooms that we can provide upon request. Since November, we have consistently reported these serious concerns that directly impact the well-being of students and teachers at Ingenuity Prep. Unfortunately, so much has changed at IP, but there are no real improvements even after your recommendations, OSCE's mandates, and continued complaints from teachers, staff, and parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Belguda. Thank you, Ms. Davis. I'm going to turn to our next public witness, Jacque.Patterson. Bree, if you would let Mr. Patterson in. It's either
yes,
raise the
Patterson,
hand. Yep.
you are unmuted.
All right, you can hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you for having me this evening. I would like to testify as a resident of Ward 8 for over 25 years and begin with a little story about my daughter. I came here as a single father and moved to Ward 8 as a military member 25 years ago. And as I was looking for schools, I finally found one in Ward 8, and she went to Thurgood Marshall. And she had an opportunity that was presented to her to learn Mandarin Chinese. And I would just like to say that it changed her whole outlook and what she could do as a student. And she did it for 2 years, and she ended up going to Spelman just because of the opportunity. So I'm here to testify on behalf of Global Citizens Public Charter School, because I know personally as a parent, learning a foreign language, what that can do for you when you're trying to get your daughter into a great school, especially a college like Spelman. It was just such a life-changing experience for my daughter. She actually got to go to China and study there as well for a couple weeks. And the other thing I would like to say is about Dr. Smith personally. I met her back in 2015 when I was just starting to work with Rocket Ship. And what I just love about her so much as a person who works in community is that she really cares about community. We have sat down recently and talked about what her community engagement strategy would be if she was afforded the opportunity to open her school east of the river. And I must say, as a person who, like I said, really works with communities both in Ward 7 and 8, she has a strategy that really talks to parents and would be open to communities to make sure that they are knowledgeable about the type of school that she's bringing there, being very transparent about what she does. I just think she's an awesome person, and she would do well come to this community. And I also know that many parents east of the river, although we have a few languages that are offered over here, there is not a Mandarin Chinese east of the river. We have Houston that has Spanish and Elsie Whitlow that offers Spanish and a few other languages, but bringing Mandarin Chinese over here east of the river would be a big benefit to families who long to have the opportunities to try different languages and to have schools that have programs that are dual language. So I'm very supportive of that. If she is approved, I look forward to even working with her as a community leader on her community engagement strategy. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. And then next on our public testimony list is Nia Nichols. So again, raise your hand in the Zoom app or press *9, Nia Nichols.
Nia Nichols, I'm unmuting you now.
Thank you. Greetings. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great. So greetings. I'm coming from speaking on behalf of Anacostia and Blue High School Redesign. I'm the community engagement coach. So I would like to start off by saying Anacostia has heard from over 700 stakeholders and Blue over 1,000. And all the stakeholders are ready to meet the needs of the students in Ward 8. Many of the school components, along with the garden schools, helps that will achieve have already been redesigned by Anacostia High School, which includes work-based learning, culturally affirming, mental health supports, community framework. But also, we already have a significant amount of high schools already in our wards, and I would say 6, 7, and 8, that are already meeting the needs of our students, and that also includes charter schools. But speaking on behalf of the redesign is offering Anacostia and Blue High School NAS certification programming over both college and readiness classes, college and career coordinators, 3DE and PBL instructional models that integrate both the community, business, and colleges in the area, internships and jobs that are competitive enough that will ultimately lead to a full-time employment, languages. I know we've heard about languages, but offering foreign languages to our incoming 9th grader and following all the way till they graduate, and also a dream team that helps support the student and the families from 9th until they graduate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nichols. Next on the public testimony list, I mistakenly cut off Anaya earlier, who was our Mandarin translator. I'm sorry, Anaya. Bree, if you would allow her in, either press *9 or raise your hand in the Zoom app, Anaya.
Okay, so
sorry about that.
How Chinese can benefit is many places like traditional Chinese restaurants
the menu can often be wrong. So me and my sister, we always go back and forth finding out the correct words, and then we order in the correct language and the correct words. And often the people that work there can understand us too, and they enjoy it. Yes. And my sister, she also went to China, and in China, it was very different for her, but she could still communicate and go back and forth fluently with the people there. So I was hoping someday that I could go to China and do the same thing that she did. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you very much to both of you for testifying and joining us this evening. Very much appreciate it. Thank you. All right. I think we've got maybe one or two other public witnesses that weren't available earlier. We'll get to during the public meeting. Now I want to move to two matters at hand for our public hearing. We're going to open up for public hearing two charter amendments. First, starting with Achievement Prep Public Charter School, their campus proposed campus reconfiguration. Bree, if you could unmute Rashida Young, our Chief School Performance Officer. As well, could whomever from the Achievement Prep team who's joining to speak this evening, raise your hand on the Zoom app or press *9.
Okay, hello, my name is Rashida Young, Chief School Performance Officer, and this is a public hearing to discuss Achievement Prep Academy Public Charter School's charter amendment request to reconfigure its campuses and correspondingly reduce its enrollment ceiling. In early February, the school submitted written notification to the DC Public Charter School Board stating that due to underperformance of its middle school, it planned to cease serving grades 4 through 8 at the close of school year 2019-20. As such, the school is requesting the following amendments. 1, to decrease its maximum enrollment ceiling by 355 students from 1,040 to 685 to reflect the closure of Waller Place Middle. And 2, to reconfigure from a 2-campus LEA to a single campus LEA authorized to serve grades pre-kindergarten 3 through 8. The school seeks to serve grades pre-kindergarten 3 through 3 in school year 2021, then beginning in school year 21-22, enroll a new cohort of 4th grade students and add a new grade each year until it reaches maturation, serving grades pre-K 3 through 8. Representatives from the school are here to answer any questions you may have.
Excellent. Bree, are you, thank you, Rashida.
Yes.
Bree, are you able to unmute them?
Yes.
Do you need them? Okay.
Jason, Stephen Marcus, and Chantel Wright, you are unmuted.
Great.
Thank you. My name is Jason Andrian. I'm the chair of the Board of Trustees for Achievement Prep. And as previously stated, we are here today to request that PCSB approve our technical amendment to reconfigure our LEA from a multi-site LEA to a single-site pre-K 3 through 8th grade LEA, and due to our decision to close our current middle school campus and decrease the overall enrollment by the corresponding number of middle school scholars. While we believe today is a technical amendment and within our rights as LEA, much of our work to date with this board has been requesting PCSB support for us to partner with Friendship Public Charter School. We do want to make sure we address questions around our decision not to move forward with that partnership and to not have a temporary middle school campus operated by Friendship at our Waller Place Middle School campus. As you know, in January, our board made the difficult decision to close our Waller Place Middle School because it wasn't meeting the high standards we had set for ourselves. We appreciate all the work you have done with Achievement Prep and Friendship to find the best solution for our families. Our partnership with Friendship was solely premised on the desire to keep our scholars in their current school location for another year enrolled in a higher performing LEA. The plan you supported in February by allowing Friendship to open a 1-year campus at Waller Place Middle School campus site was intended to minimize as much disruption to our families as possible, allowing current and rising Achievement Prep middle school scholars to be enrolled in the temporary Friendship campus at Waller Place. We truly appreciate your support and approval of our plan. On March 2nd, the Deputy Mayor of Education, Paul Kine, issued a formal letter to Friendship that states that any enrollment at this point by Friendship at the Waller Place campus outside of the district common lottery, my school DC, would be deemed improper enrollment and potentially violate the principles of open enrollment as set forth by the DC official code, which requires that all district students have the opportunity to be randomly selected for new charter school options to ensure a fair process for everyone. The letter further stated that a paper application by Friendship would violate the rights of other district families and the My School DC common lottery process, as almost 1,000 families at the time had indicated interest in Achievement Prep or Friendship campuses serving grades 4 through 8. We truly believe that our plan was what was best for our scholars and for the students at Friendship. We have to follow the law, though. Since there was no clear path forward for our Achievement Prep scholars to attend the Waller Place campus, the board decided not to move forward with the temporary campus at Waller Place Middle School. As a governing board and a charter school that served as a founding board member of the Common Lottery Board, we fully respect the process put in place by the district to ensure equal access for all children, recognizing the children we serve benefit the most from such processes. Even though we wanted our proposed plan to benefit our families, the Board of Trustees of Achievement Prep would never want to be part of setting precedent in any way, jeopardizing the importance of fair and equal access. We teach our scholars to be good citizens, and so supporting a plan that does not fully follow the law is not something we can do. Achievement Prep's board is simply not comfortable going against the Deputy Mayor of Education's determination that our proposed course of action would violate the law. We know that the majority of Achievement Prep's current 3rd through 7th grade families applied in the initial lottery round of My School DC by the March 2nd deadline and will know their lottery seats for the 2021 school year this week. For those families who did not meet the March 2nd deadline, the majority have entered the post-lottery to be placed on a wait list for the schools they selected. We, along with the family enrollment specialists from PCSB, have been working to support these families in understanding the post-lottery process and their school options moving forward. This is not the result we hoped for our scholars and their families, but the law is the law. Although our decision does not proceed with the Friendship plan, although our decision does not proceed with the Friendship plan was difficult, we were gratified to receive a gracious note from Paul Kine endorsing our decision. And here's what he said in his note. Many thanks for sharing this letter and for letting me know about what must have been an extremely difficult decision for you all. I have extraordinary respect for Chantel's leadership and the good work of Achievement Prep, and I have followed your decision making in as a supportive a way as possible. I very much look forward to working with you, the board, and the school community in any way you may think helpful during this tough transition, and certainly going forward. I know you are in touch with PCSB expert staff. I know if you would like any support from DCPS, OSSI, or the My School DC team for your schools to complement PCSB's help, please do not hesitate to ask. We would now be happy to answer any questions the board may have at this time.
Thank you. Bree, are all the board members unmuted?
Yes, I have Stephen Marcus and Chantel Wright.
Excellent. Stephen and Chantel, would you like to make any additional comments or remarks at this point?
Good evening. This is Stephen Marcus, counsel for the school. I'm here to answer any legal questions that may come up, but I have no comments to make at this point.
And same with me, Rick. Thank you, but I'm happy to answer whatever questions you have for me.
Great. Thank you. Board members.
This is Jim Sandman. I have a question related to the financial situation of Achievement Prep. The staff memo says that the school has the ability to cover operating deficits for each of the next 5 years. It says also that the school will be required to make an additional principal payment or payments for the new market tax credit loans as of May 2024. My questions are two. What is the amount of the outstanding principal on the new market tax credit loans? And what is the prognosis for the school's ability to pay the principal after running operating deficits for the next 5 years?
Yep, so we have, currently we have I think it is a 30 million new market tax credit, 10 million of which will be forgiven in 2025. We also have right now about a $7.5 million reserve that we would be operating off during this time. So while the financial show operating deficit, it does not reflect that reserve. So that's where the I don't know that I think then it's up to 5 years. I think when we forecasted it, we said up to 3, or maybe we were just being conservative on our end. But there is a loan forgiveness, as you know, that's what new market tax credits do. It'll relieve 10 million of that debt in 2025, and right now we have the 7.5.
But will you have a principal payment due in 2024? When will you have any principal payment due?
In 2025. So after the forgiveness, that's when we start hitting the principal.
And do you recall what the first principal payment due will be?
I don't know that offhand. I mean, I can get that information to you or the financial person. I don't know what his name is at PCSB.
Okay, thank you. But my question is that it appears to me that there might be some risk that if you use your reserves to cover your forecasted operating deficits for the next few years, I'm not clear that you will necessarily have the ability to make the principal payment when it comes due.
If we don't restart serving our grade configuration, that is the case, yes.
Thank you.
I have a question. So if the board were to approve the school to continue to grow after this reconfiguration, what have you all discussed to put in place to ensure that you don't have the same issue arise once you start to serve middle school again?
Yep, so, you know, middle schools across the city are struggling right now, and to meet the needs for our children, and Achievement Prep is no different. And in an effort to expand our impact, we grew Achievement Prep Network to include early childhood and elementary grades at a time when we should have been focused on responding to the instructional demands and shift that were required by transition to Common Core. Instead, we were growing our schools, building out the network office, onboarding tons of staff, and engaging in that $31 million facility build, all while the bar was changing. So, and as a result, our output declined and our scholars suffered. So as we think about doing this again, as you've seen with our elementary school, we have taken a much different focus in terms of teaching and learning and what that looks like moving forward. We plan to work with a consultant to create a green lighting process that the board would follow before we started serving those grades. We also anticipate restarting that 4th grade out of our current elementary schools, that our 3rd graders would be those incoming 4th graders, maybe feeding in a few small spots. We also plan to make the school smaller. We let the school get really big. The school was almost 500 at one point, and that's a pretty big middle school to run from grades 4 through 8. So we plan to continue to work with small classroom sizes and smaller enrollment all around. And so part of our goal is to create a very clear green lighting process that shows when we're ready to make sure that we're ready to meet the needs of our scholars.
Thank you. And have you all considered serving pre-K 3 through 5th grade before moving forward with growing into middle school? And just
our middle school has always been 4 through 8. We started when we opened up, we were a 4 through 8 middle school, and that is because when children move from learning to read to having to read to learn is generally at that 3rd grade going into 4th grade part. So that's always been deemed middle school for us, even though other schools seem it another way. We have not talked about doing that. That's not completely off the table. I think it would change I know it would change our financials completely, but it's not something that we have talked about.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing to support your current middle schoolers in terms of getting them placed for next year?
Well, before COVID-19, this has been a whole different reality for all the schools in the city, quite honestly, Ricarda. So before that, we knew that the majority of our families were in the My School DC lottery before January 2nd, but there were a large number who were not. So what we did is we worked specifically with those families we held a series of parent meetings after the board decision was made to inform families of where we were and what was going on. We pulled out the laptops then so families could enter the post lottery so that they know and understand. I have to say from the PCSB side, Lenora Robinson and Charlene Nichols have been very helpful in terms of getting us information about who is in the lottery and who's not, because that's not information we have access to as a LEA. It can only come to us through PCSB, and it generally comes like Friday afternoon. So the last one we got was right before schools closed permanently. So to the extent we don't know hopefully we'll get another one. I'm assuming hopefully shortly. Charlene has been really good at getting that to us. And then we just work with our families one-on-one and directly to make sure that they understand the post lottery, they understand the options, and what it is that they need to do.
That makes sense. And so just in terms of how has the communication with your families in general been since going through this COVID situation?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, since COVID, it's been, honestly, our focus has been on how do we get them the materials that they need to educate, to basically do our job for 6 weeks, right? That's what all schools have to recognize, that we've asked families to do our job for 6 weeks, which is extremely hard, particularly given who we serve and lack of access and all the issues that come with serving our population. So honestly, we have not talked to them about enrollment. Prior to that, though, we held a series of meetings. Once the decision was made, we literally had one more week before COVID hit, and we held a meeting sometimes 3 times a day for our families to get them in the morning. We did it midday at lunch, as well as evening and at dismissal. So I guess sometimes 4 times a day to make sure they knew what was going on and that they'd heard from us directly. My communication with my families is always clear, honest, and transparent. They give us the privilege of educating their children, so we don't hide when we meet that obligation, and we also don't hide when we don't meet it. So they are very well aware of our decisions. They were clearly disappointed in the fact that there would not be a friendship campus there. Although we were very clear that it was something that needed to be approved, we were trying very much so to guarantee them enrollment in their current school as much as possible, and we're just not able. And we talked about that, and we talked about that clearly. Because we had also said that to families, we were also encouraging them to enter the My School DC lottery at the same time that they filled out any intent to enroll in friendship forms. And so to the extent that families didn't do that, we're working with them. We did home visits. We took laptops to to homes themselves for them to be able to apply and make sure that they understand what's in front of them. There are still some families that we desperately need to get at and figure out what's going on and where they are. And that will be our goal of what we feel like we've got a good, strong remote plan now. That will be our goal over the next couple of weeks, especially with the lottery deadline, the lottery results coming out this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for all you've been doing in these really unusual times. I can only imagine the overdrive and the outreach that your team has been doing. So thank you for that. And I did want to hear more broadly, even beyond these middle schoolers. Do you have a sense of what percentage of your students and families you've been in touch with, and kind of what percentage you might not have touched yet?
Yeah, so we did meetings actually with the entire network. So even though middle school was directly impacted, what we know is that we serve families from 3 years old to 13, 14 years old. So we actually did meetings with both campuses, our Apple Tree families, our elementary families, and our middle school families to talk about that. I would say at this point, we have touched base with probably 95% of our families. There are, I would say our non-publics have been a little difficult for us to get into, and those are the children that are in a much more extreme kind of non-public setting. That's been a little bit more difficult for us to get in front of, although we've communicated with them, but because they don't go to the school, it's hard for us to get in front of them. And then we serve a population where there are just some families that it is hard to get, and we've got to do everything that we can, sometimes going through the child, sometimes going through friends of parents. Our fellow parents have been very helpful for us. Our families know what's going on, so a lot of times they're talking to each other and sharing information. So we worked with a very specific subset of our parents to also kind of be the ambassadors to pass the information along. Some of them are board representatives, but some of them are not. They just are active parents. And you know who has social collateral and who doesn't among the community. And so we've made sure that they know the actual facts and not the, in between in the story, so that they could also talk to peers as well. But there are few population that we're just saying, like, it's just difficult to get, particularly once you start getting in those upper middle school rank grades, that it's just tough to get them to understand. And even when you do home visits, the door doesn't always open it the way that we'd like.
As a follow-up to that, can you speak to any supports that you all are offering to make sure that the students in that grade band that you were just describing, or in the circumstances you were describing, how you all are ensuring that they are getting adequate supports and where it's harder for you to manage that? Is there any way that you've been in touch with any other services, government agencies or such, to make sure that there's some type of touch point to make sure those students are safe and receiving the education they're supposed to be at this time?
Yeah, so we don't, in terms of like safety, there's not a health and wellness safety thing. We try very hard, particularly given who we serve, not to get government agencies involved unless it's absolutely necessary. That's not something that my community welcomes, and that has always worked in their benefit, even when we try. So we're not worried about anything in terms of health and wellness at this point, Naomi, just to be quite candid. I would think that after this, the lottery results come out and that starts to move, and anyone who runs a school knows it's just like the families you're trying to get in to fill out a form. They don't think that it's going to happen until it happens, right? So it's like last minute in terms of moving and getting responses. Those are the families that I'm talking about. So as soon as lottery hits and they don't have an answer, those are families that we know we will also hear from, and those are families that we know them, and we will also continue to go after. I mean, we won't stop. We're not going to just leave families out there where we can't tell you where every single child went. That's our commitment, not even just for you, that's for us. They trusted us with their education. It's important for us to follow through and make sure that they're in a school and safe.
Thank you for all this. Ms. Wright, your amendment application states that with the reconfiguration, you'll be eliminating the majority of the LEA's network office. Can you speak to which positions specifically those may be that are eliminated, and how do you feel like you can ensure strong programming without those positions?
Yep, so Leah, I don't want to mention the exact roles because we haven't had full conversations yet, but what I have been very clear with all our staff about is you don't have a huge, large network office when you have one campus, right? Like that's not what you have, but also understanding the very thin line that we are walking in terms of we are planning to relaunch and go back. So we can't do that while we're also still, if the network team and those are supporting are actually running the schools day to day. So we will keep key roles and responsibilities, but I'd actually not want to answer that on this call just because we have not had direct conversations with everybody impacted as we're still trying to figure out what exactly is key and what isn't.
Questions from any other board members? I have one, Chantal or Jason, if you can, either one of you, whoever's best positioned to answer it. When we spoke with Jason shortly after you submitted the letter about the change in position and with respect to the partnership with Friendship, he also suggested that there was a question about Friendship's ability to accommodate students that factored into your rationale. I'd just love to better understand that.
Jason, do you want to handle that? I don't know what that is about, but do you want to handle that, or do you want me to respond?
No, you should probably respond.
Well, my response is I don't know what you're talking about, Rick. So, in this case, the board decided to follow the law, and that's what we did. So I'm not sure. There were side conversations and questions about the best way to do this open enrollment, but that was not the board's main decision, or that I know of.
So the point that Jason made to me about the concern about Friendship not being able to take all of the students being a factor is not the case?
Not that I know of. We had a conversation about the way that the paper application would happen, but that's not my understanding.
Jason, could you?
Sure. Our primary, I may have had the facts incorrect in that regard, but our primary concern, as I stated to you and Scott on that phone call, and as I stated 2 or 3 times during my opening statement, was that we did not want to violate the law. And that was where the board came down on their decision, was not being at odds with the deputy mayor on his very clear letter.
Okay. Very well. Are there any other questions? All right, this will be up for a vote at next month's meeting. God willing, that will be in person, but Lord knows it will could very well be in virtual format again. Board members, any other questions? Otherwise, I will invite us to move to the next matter opening for public hearing.
Just so that I'm still not quite clear on understanding what is the matter of law that potentially could have been violated in this case?
I think I could probably speak to that, Ms. Grizzi. So the School Reform Act has a provision that says that if more students want to enroll in a school than there are seats, then there has to be a random selection process. That's a requirement of the School Reform Act, and what was contemplated here, since Friendship was going to open this new campus after the date on which the enrollment process began, is that they were going to have a paper enrollment process, sort of to operate outside of the normal enrollment process set up by my school DC. And the Deputy Mayor for Education's view was, in the letter that he sent on March 2nd, was that by having this process outside of the open enrollment process contemplated by the School Reform Act and by my school DC, that would be a violation both of the School Reform Act's requirement of random selection and open enrollment and my school DC's own policy. And for that reason, the Achievement Prep Board decided they did not want to be at odds with the Deputy Mayor and potentially in violation of the School Reform Act.
But forgive me for not being an attorney and not being quite as, I should be better versed in the School Reform Act than I am, but that presumes that there would have been an excessive demand than supply of seats. Is that right?
That is correct. And in fact, if you look at the Deputy Mayor's letter, you'll see that, and I forget the precise number, but there were far more students who were interested in getting a seat at either Achievement Prep's middle school or at Friendship's middle school than there were seats available. And so the Deputy Mayor's position was that in using the paper lottery process, those students who were kind of already in line would be treated unfairly and in violation of the requirement that all students be treated equally and fairly.
but that's based on qualitative feedback. That's certainly, when we all know that when one expresses interest, that's not the same thing as actually having submitted an application. Is that so? If you're right that that's still an interpretation of demand from an outside, from a party, but that's not necessarily fact until it happens.
Also,
Well,
Leah, it's worth noting that
in this case, that the fact is, in this case, Paul, according to his letter, pulled and said that at the time of this thing, there were 190 applications in my school DC for achievement prep, and there were 148 plus in the actual my school DC lottery for achievement prep grades, friendship grades, serving grades 4 through 8. So I'm not sure that it's as necessarily as qualitative as of at that point that it was. And for us, the bottom line is we were not going to get into a war with the deputy mayor, particularly once it was in writing that this would violate equal access and open enrollment. It's just not a battle that a small LEA run by a leader of color needs to be taken on the deputy mayor of education. That does not do me any well. It doesn't, I get that the PCSB staff thinks that it should happen and we shouldn't be concerned about it. As a LEA that has to rebuild itself and a LEA that has to restart, we are very much so worried about it. And once the deputy mayor put something in writing saying that for us to do anything else could potentially violate open enrollment law, it's not something, it raised great concern for our board, and it actually raised great concern for us. It was one thing when we were talking hypothetically in all of these meetings. It's a whole nother thing when it's in writing that this would be a violation. And that's just, and while there would be no direct recourse, if you will, against achievement prep, everybody knows Friendship came to the table at the request of achievement prep. Friendship came in this with a complete open heart, open mind, ready to do this work. And so them taking a penalty, in essence, everybody knew they came there for us. And so it was not something that we were willing to risk. Further, open enrollment laws benefit the children that we serve. We serve a population that is constantly pushed out and not given the equal access to some of the schools they want to go to. So we don't want to be part of any way jeopardizing or compromising that law.
So just to be clear, the problem would have really been with Friendship. Friendship would have been the one having the off-campus lottery, right? I don't know, Marcus or Chantal, if you want to answer that. It would really have been Friendship's issue.
Exactly like what I just said. Yes, so absolutely, Friendship would have taken the hit.
Which they were willing to do.
They were willing to do it. However, everybody knows that Friendship came to the table at the request of Achievement Prep. And so we're not willing to do.
Someone mute themselves who's dinging.
What we weren't willing to do is risk any aftermath that may come to us as an event. So whereas Friendship as a large LEA was willing to take on that hit and deal with that as they could, we as a small LEA were not willing to.
Just we had approved the Friendship had submitted to us their lottery procedures, and we had approved those lottery procedures. So that's just something I wanted to get on the record.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott.
In terms of the approval of the paper or original lottery process that we approved, was that process vetted and acknowledged by the deputy mayor? Or, I don't know if ASA would have anything to do with this, but was that completely vetted with the deputy mayor's office?
No, the deputy mayor's communication, which went directly from the deputy mayor to Friendship, said that Friendship would be conducting a lottery outside of the common lottery. And Friendship had signed up to the common lottery, and one of the requirements of being part of the common lottery is that all admissions be done through the lottery. And so the deputy mayor was communicating two things. First of all, that they would not allow this new campus to be part of the common lottery because they felt that by coming late, it would be unfair. And second of all, that any lottery run outside of the common lottery would violate the rules of the common lottery board. As a matter of, sorry, just to finish, Friendship's charter with the public charter school board grants them the right to conduct lotteries outside of the common lottery. It grants them a right to, as long as it's done in a fair manner that uses random selection if there are more applicants than there are seats. And so Friendship submitted to us their planned procedure for admitting students to this new middle school. And we had told them that that procedure met the criteria of their charter and of the law.
So my follow-up question to that would be whether or not any conversation, did the deputy mayor come to the charter board at all to raise a flag about this being a possible issue?
No.
And am I correct that LEAs opt into participation in the My School DC?
Yes.
The My School DC is not a regulatory body.
No.
Correct.
The greatest sanction that My School DC could take would be to expel a member from the common lottery. There was a meeting of the common lottery, and that would require a majority vote by the common lottery board, which includes 3 charter representatives. And at the meeting of the common lottery board to discuss this matter, there was no appetite whatsoever for taking any sanction against Friendship.
So again, what I will say to answer your question, Leah, why it seems that Scott has a lot of information that we were not privy to, as I said, for us as a small LEA, to when I received the letter from Friendship and I forwarded it to my executive committee, it raised concerns and they wanted to have a meeting on Friday and we talked about it. And part of that concern was also trying to figure out, understanding exactly what both Saba and I don't know who else said it, but that any repercussion would go against Friendship. We also live in a city where we know exactly how things happen in terms of, well, actually we don't know exactly how things happen, which is part of the problem in terms of where the repercussions or not come from certain actions that schools take. And so for us at this point, without there being a very clear path to get all or the majority of our scholars in their school, and there being a question about whether or not any kind of enrollment taking place would violate the open enrollment law, it was not something that we were willing to take on, and or that we want to be in a fight with the Deputy Mayor of Education in a changing landscape. We're going to have a new ED of the Public Charter School Board really soon. We don't know, we are under attack as a sector around charters and what it means and what it looks like. And what I don't want to do is have achievement prep as we are trying to serve children in a political fight because it looks as if we have somehow violated open enrollment. We wholeheartedly went into it knowing that Friendship would probably have to do a paper enrollment. However, there was the request made by them to do it through My School DC. Once the letter came back and it was in writing for all to see and copying multiple people who do have jurisdiction over us, despite what Scott may think or whoever may think about the power of the Deputy Mayor of Education, it is not something, particularly as a small LEA and led by a leader of color, that I am willing to take on, nor was my board willing to take on. The law is the law and we must follow the law. Open enrollment is required. We tried through the ACID agreement to work with guaranteed enrollment for scholars. That was not a path that we could take. We then tried through the temporary campus. That's not a path that we can take. And so while regretful, I'm not sure what the question is about us following the law, why that would be deemed now something that would in any way ding us as an organization.
I don't think the question was asked in that way. I think we're just trying to seek to understand your interpretation of it. And yeah, I think Chantal, you can appreciate as such a full-throated supporter of charter autonomy that we want to ensure that we're not surrendering to My School DC the rights that our schools have, especially in this case, Friendship through its charter the ability to run a lottery, though paper-based, that had safeguards to ensure the greatest access to the community. So I think that's what we're trying to understand more fully.
So Rick, Leah,
our point of bringing friendship to the table was not about open enrollment and making that space available. It was about trying to minimize the disruption to achievement prep scholars.
Right.
And what we could not imagine was a world where there was a school that existed in their building, grades 4 through 8, serving the exact same scholars, the exact same grades, and those children could not have access to that rule, to that space. And so while I understand, and absolutely, I am definitely a stalwart for charter autonomy and will take it on all day long. Once we knew, the only reason we asked Friendship to come to the table was because we wanted our scholars to be able to stay in their building for at least another year. So we were trying to do all that we could to make that happen. Once that didn't happen, our job was not to figure out the open enrollment. As Ms. Brantley has made very clear to us, Friendship is doing a great job serving their scholars in their current buildings and schools. They were coming to us to help support us to minimize disruption to achievement prep families. Once that was off the table, because it needed to be open, and we were told that over 1,000 children had already gone into My School DC, I'm not sure what more we were supposed to do. It would be very clear that once that was open and that lottery happened, that I'm sure at least some of those 190 that wanted achievement prep, and I'm sure some of those 850 that want Friendship would have applied to that school, which means that not all, and possibly not even a majority of achievement prep scholars would end up in that space. So that's the other piece that was key to us in the decision. We were not bringing Friendship to the table just to open up another campus at the Waller Place campus. We were bringing them there to serve achievement prep families. That's their building, it's their school. We raised the money for achievement prep. We raised the money for that community. And if that couldn't happen, I couldn't imagine looking at a little 6th grader and try to explain why they can't have a seat at the school they've been at for all that time. So there was also that dynamic as well. That's why they came to the table.
So I think I just want to make sure I add that the meeting that I had the chance to attend gave me a second wind in all this stuff. The leader, it was so clear, explicit and implicit, coursing through the room, that the priority was supporting these scholars and minimizing disruption to them.
Yep.
And the conclusion that the room came to, which had been the idea of opening a 1-year campus, that there would be a lottery on paper, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's where I'm still a little stuck, that I don't actually, and I don't know that we can resolve it here. I need to spend the next few weeks before our vote for me to understand this interpretation of it not somehow being legal. That the emphasis and the very clear priority that you and your leadership team and your board had set seemed like the right course of action. And again, I don't think that we can resolve this. I'm just not sure that I agree with the interpretation that somehow it would not be legal. So I need to get my head around it more. Thank you for.
Steve, can I just for a second just ask this question? I'm trying to, Leah, someone who was at that meeting, was there a representative from the deputy mayor's office in the meeting that you all had with Friendship and Prep? Right. So my question again goes back to why wasn't this flag raised within the 2 agencies? One of them being a quasi and the other being a public agency. Why was there not cross collaboration or discussion from them to us to say that this was an issue before we even voted on anything last month? I recognize that Chantel and Pat and all these other people have been collaborative with us to figure out how to move forward. I'm trying to see why this monkey wrench was thrown into this process. That's my question.
11th hour.
Legal, or they have the autonomy, or whatever. Why was that never raised after we went through this whole public process? Why didn't anyone from the deputy mayor's office reach out to Scott, reach out to Rashida and say, the way that you all are going about this is raises these flags for us, and we'd like to get you all to a recommended suggestion on how to move forward. But like to throw this monkey wrench in there, and as Chantel has said over and over and over again, as a small LEA who was asked another LEA who's led by a person of color to come in and help them, then to have them have to have this public dispute in the throes of what we know is a challenge around charters, period. So nobody wants to have to fight within the fight.
And to follow up on this, am I right that this letter was only sent to you, not to Friendship?
Just to Friendship.
It was only sent to Friendship. It was not sent to Achievement Prep because it only related to Friendship's desire, their first desire to try to do this through the lottery. And that was what the principal import of the letter was to say, no, you can't do it through the lottery because we think admitting a new school to the lottery at this late date would not be consistent with the principles of the common lottery. So there was no, to my knowledge, there was no communication with Achievement Prep about this because it had nothing to do with Achievement Prep in terms of who was running the lottery.
Is it possible that the I don't know if it's a unique nature, but the contours of Friendship's charter was not fully understood by all parties?
No. We explained it very clearly to both the deputy mayor and the common lottery board.
All right, I'm gonna bring us to a close on this. Again, we'll be voting on this next month. Oh, I'm sorry, Steve.
Yeah. So I was in that meeting too, and I agree with Leah that the energy in the room was to try to figure out a way to support Friendship and Achievement Prep to keep those students at the school they'd been attending and to not disperse them. And we did, the issue of the DME and My School DC and OSSI, all of that was raised in the meeting. But as Chantel said, they were hypotheticals. And I just think, you know, we can agree or disagree with the position that Achievement Prep's board has taken on this, but I think we can all understand their logic too, that they're a small school that doesn't have an appetite to get into the middle of a political fight. And I just want to say, like, I hoped that we didn't have to disperse these kids because of some bureaucratic fight between agencies in the city. But we are not bearing this risk. And I just want to say, it feels to me like we're up here saying that Achievement Prep's position is unreasonable. I just want to say that it's unfortunate, but I don't consider it to be unreasonable. I understand the logic. I understand the logic also that Friendship might have and that many of us might have, that we should just fight the DME on this. But I also understand why, you know, Achievement Prep doesn't want to. So I just want to say this is a complicated situation and the resolution is not clean, particularly for students. But that I don't feel, you know, if we're going to talk about autonomy, Achievement Prep has the right to make the decision that they want to make, even if we don't like it.
And I would also like to say that the decision that was made, that precipitated where we are today, was made by adults not keeping kids in mind. That's what
I agree with you.
This is for me, that people were not keeping the effort that every adult that was in that joint meeting made to have the children at the forefront of the decision that they made. Adults came in and pulled the rug from underneath people, whether they sent the letter to Friendship, whether they sent it to whomever they sent it to. There was clearly a power play there that I think was just completely unfair to the families that these two schools had worked collectively to move forward to continue to serve. I don't want to.
All right. Okay, thank you all. Chantal, Jason, Stephen, thank you for joining us this evening. Again, we'll be voting on this next month. And certainly if the board has additional questions, we will reach out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item up for public hearing, opening for public hearing this evening. Hannah Cousineau from our staff, our Manager of Equity Audits and Support, bringing up virtually the social justice school staff. So whoever's joining on behalf of social justice, please make yourself known so that Bree can unmute you.
Yep, I see Reggie, the Director of Operations, and yep, there's the rest of the team there. Perfect. Okay, I can get started on my script.
Great, thank you, Anna.
All right, hello, my name is Hannah Cousineau, Manager on the Equity Audits and Supports team. This is a public hearing on the proposed facility location of Social Justice Public Charter School. The school received conditional approval to operate on May 20th, 2019. And one of the conditions for full approval is securing a facility. Social Justice PCS plans to co-locate its facility with Rocket Ship Education DC Public Charter School at its Fort Totten campus at 5450 3rd Street Northeast in Ward 5. Pending its full charter approval, the school will begin operation in school year 2021, seeking to enroll 65 students in grades 5 and 6. By school year 2022-23, it will reach maturity, seeking to serve a total of 300 students in grades 5 through 8. This vote is scheduled to occur on May 19th. Representatives from the school are here to answer your questions.
Excellent. Would anyone from Social Justice like to make any opening remarks?
Hello, Myron, founder and director. I'm not sure what's going on with our audio, but hope you all can hear us now better.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So as you can see, our team has expanded. So we have Michelle, our Director of Student Support Services, Brandon Johnson, our founding principal, and Reggie, our Director of Operations. And we're really excited to have this conversation this evening. And thank you all for taking time.
Excellent. All right, board wants to start with any questions for the social justice team about their proposed amendment and location.
Hi, this is Naomi. So can you just give us a quick overview of how your planning year has gone so far?
Yes, so this year has been a year of iterations. We've had a ton of design challenges, a ton of iterations on schedule. So for example, we're on schedule version 23 and budget 23.5, probably be 24 by tomorrow. But throughout all this process, we've learned how to work together as a founding school team and have been really thoughtful about how we engage our families, especially during this very difficult and challenging time, and ensuring that we are always operating from a place of our principles and our values as a school. And naming that, you know, this year has also been, because it's a year of iterations, it's been a year of challenges as well. But as a result of our commitment to design thinking and responsiveness to the community, we really feel like we have applied our principles in order to continue the progress towards launch.
Thank you. And in terms of your the applications, can you just tell us really quickly where you are in your, and I know this is a completely different set of circumstances, but where you are in your applications, numbers wise, what do you anticipate, Lord willing, we are able to open schools in the fall?
Yeah, so currently we're at 67 applications and our target is 65. We intend on being fully enrolled by the time we get to the fall.
Naomi, I think you were on mute.
I'll pass the mic to someone else.
How does your, sorry, this is Leah.
What kind of stakeholder feedback and community?
I think my internet is unstable for the second. Can you hear me?
Sorry. Oh yeah. We'll give you a chance to, Leah, to
Yeah,
sort of reset yourself or Ricarda, why don't you answer your question? Let's give Leah a chance to get her Wi-Fi working again.
Okay, sure, thanks. I just wanted to ask about community engagement.
Oh, you're freezing.
So because everybody is having challenges, I'm going to ask the rest of my questions.
Oh.
So she's probably asking about community engagement. Can you walk us through what that has looked like what that has looked like, not only in your recruitment phase, but also in just making sure that you are bringing community into your process?
Definitely, and thank you for that question, Naomi. So at the Social Justice School, we believe in building with, not for the community. And we've had the opportunity to engage both Ward 5 and the larger Washington, D.C. community in 3 ways. And those ways have been through canvassing and tabling, through engagement with civic associations and the ANC, and also through school partnerships with schools in the area. So first, with the canvassing and tabling, we've had the opportunity to canvass and table throughout the city at metro stations and also community events for the past 8 months. So it's been actually a blast, meeting residents of Ward 5 at Chuck Brown Day, at the H Street Festival, Adams Morgan Festival. And we've had the opportunity to participate at those events and meet families and spread awareness. We've also been canvassing at metro stations consistently. In addition, we've had the opportunity to engage with various members of the Ward 5 community through civic associations. We've presented at the North Michigan Park Civic Association meeting twice, and also the NOMA Civic Association meeting. In fact, one of our founding parents, Ms. Aziz, who you have a letter of support from, is going to be sending her daughter to a social justice school. And also with the ANCs, we've been to every ANC meeting since August to present to the community. We've done that twice, but really we've had the opportunity to meet with every ANC 5A commissioner where our school will be located to get their feedback and thoughts about the school. And in addition, we had the opportunity to, Myron did, to present at ANC 4B, which is also adjacent to our school. We were fortunate to receive a letter of support from ANC 5A back in January. And then finally, school partnerships. We've had the opportunity to really form great relationships with local elementary schools in the area, particularly, I know they're not elementary school, but Berea, Bridges PCS, and DC Bilingual. And they've gave us the opportunity to meet with the families and share news about the social justice school as a new option for scholars.
Awesome. So just in the sake of full transparency, have you all received any pushback? Could you just give us a little more exposure to what people have said have been challenges or things that they've raised flags about? And that's inclusive of traffic issues, et cetera. If you could also point us to, of course, in light of all that's happening with COVID-19, what are you doing to ensure that you are able to meet your recruitment measures? What are you all doing to continue to kind of till the soil on what's possible?
Definitely. So in all those different strategies that we've talked about in terms of canvassing, ANC meetings, and school partnerships, we've also asked families to give us feedback, not only on our instructional model, but just our presence in the community. And so some of the feedback that we've received have been around traffic and parking and also security. And so to mitigate some of the challenges around the traffic, we have been working in partnership with Rocketship by attending these biweekly project meetings that we have in order to ensure that we have an easy flow of traffic. And what that looks like operationally is a staggered start time and end time, a staggered start and end time for the start of school as well, to ensure that we have all operationalized the traffic In terms of the parking, there's only a few parking spaces in year one. I think it's about 12. And so we're definitely going to encourage families and our staff in order to take the metro, because again, our campus will be a 7-minute walk from the metro station with a path directly from the metro station. For families and for staff members, we're already thinking about ways that we can incentivize that through like smart benefits as well. And then in terms of security, we've, again, been working with Rocket Ship to ensure, one, I know that my job as the ED is to ensure that all of our families feel safe and secure. What that looks like operationally is ensuring that there's 100% ID check, ensuring that the building is built with the function of a system that will match IDs to different registrars to ensure that the folks who are coming in our building are the folks who should be actually getting our students, and also ensuring that there's only one entrance in and one entrance out, and each school representative will have an administrative person in that particular corridor to ensure that there is an opportunity to assess students that are coming in the building, potential members that are coming in the building. In terms of ensuring that our students are engaged during this unprecedented time, we have been really thinking about that. And so the first thing that we did when this state of emergency began to happen is actually we just picked up the phone and called our families and say, you know what, we're here with you, and please let us know what you need. And here are the 3 ways that we can support you as a school. One, we wanted to address food shortages. So we've been sending out gift cards to Giant and Walmart as well. And also doing Uber rides and Uber Eats for families who struggle with public transportation, and also offering office hours for families to help with their own homework at their current existing school, and community circles that are virtual as well. And the response overall has been so positive. We sent out about 17 gift cards over this past few days, and have office hours scheduled as well, and have a virtual community circle as well. And so even for the families who didn't necessarily need the support, they just really appreciated this commitment to making sure that we create a school where students feel like they matter and our families belong, even if they aren't even yet enrolled in our school. We know that this is going to bring a significant challenge and strain on our gift, which is being in front of folks, but we're using digital marketing strategies through Google Ads, through Radio 1, and some other geofencing as well, in order to make sure that we continue to leverage and gain more awareness about our school, and also doing virtual open houses and virtual hard hat tours as well.
So the only thing I didn't hear necessarily answered was about negative feedback. Some more in terms of anything else that folks, that has changed. Like you said, you're on your 25th, 26th iteration. Can you give us insight into any pushback from the community that has shifted things that you all are iterating on and are thinking about?
Yeah, so the 3 areas that were major feedback were the parking, security, and traffic.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that was it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Got it, all righty. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ricarda, is your sound back up and running?
Yeah, I think it is. Is it?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. But you actually addressed my question just right, so thank you.
I've got a question in the chat from Saba, who has her 4-year-old in the background. So the question for the social justice team is with regards to how you're preparing to co-locate your middle schoolers with the pre-K through 2 crowd, and creating appropriate sort of space and safeguards there.
Yeah, so as Myron spoke to or alleged a little bit earlier, Angel, the principal of Rocket Ship, and I have served on monthly phone calls, in which we've talked about logistics in terms of start and end times, in terms of when we would do lunch and recess duty, as well as where we're gonna have like our breakout spaces. And so currently we're in the process of, as we go to the school, as we do these hard hat tours and we really look at the physical layout of the space, just making sure that we're having continual conversations to make sure that the space is gonna meet the needs of all the students that are gonna be in the building, and that we can be accepting and accommodating of each other. You know, they're part of our crew now, we're part of their crew. And so we know that communication is gonna be vital to making sure that this partnership works. And so we just continue to be upfront about the needs that we have and our desires, and they're doing the same, and hopefully that will continue to engage us in a strong relationship.
just as an example, just last week, I think it was, maybe a couple of weeks ago, we were working on our schedule, our class schedule. We knew that we couldn't have recess before a certain amount of time because the pre-K kiddos at Rocket Ship were doing nap. So we had to make sure that when we were doing our school and class schedule that that during the time that nap was happening, there were no loud middle schoolers outside playing outside their windows. So I think just having that kind of information and the constant communication, frequent communication between our two schools and our two leadership teams really helps inform our design process when we're designing what will be best for all of the scholars.
And as the school, as the physical property continues to expand, so there's different phases of growth. In the second phase for year 2, Justice School will actually have like their kind of own wing within the second building. So again, that'll create, the natural distance that is needed while also maintaining the communication through the cooperation committee and the calls around standardizing processes and operations as well.
Great, thank you. Leah, did you have a question?
Yes, I'm sorry about that earlier. The question that I wanted to ask was, given anticipated enrollment for next year in contrast with your plan and your budget, is that causing you to have to readjust anything?
Great question. Thank you. So we built our budget around the projections, which is 65 students, because we wanted to be a fiscally responsible organization. And we have developed contingency plans in the event of shortfalls. And so we work with our finance committee, our treasurer, and EdOps to make sure that all of those contingency plans work financially and accomplish 3 particular objectives. 1, to ensure that we have a positive net income. 2, to ensure that we will exceed the cash amount of days of cash on hand required. And then 3, that we can implement our core curriculum. And some of the contingencies that we've developed are, mostly around decreasing staff leadership salaries and also decreasing the average teacher salary as well. And in some scenarios, lowering our FTEs. But again, our bottom line with those top 3 things around positive net income, ensuring that we have enough cash on hands, and also ensuring that we can implement our core model. Also, as a school, we've been very humbled and fortunate to raise a significant amount of money in our pre-planning and planning year as well. And so we've had the opportunity to receive additional facilities grants. And we've also created as a part of our license agreement, we had to put down a deposit that we were able to do because of our facilities grant. And we've also been approved of a OSCE guarantee as well to address any potential shortcomings in the event of not meeting the enrollment target.
All right, thank you for that. You planned for this.
Thank you.
All right. Board members, any other questions for the social justice team? If not, we will see you back next month for the vote. Thanks for all that you're doing. Thanks for the update. And we'll look forward to hearing more in 4 weeks' time. And good luck with everything.
Rick,
Thank you. Thank you.
The vote will be in May, by the way.
Sorry, in May. I stand corrected.
Close to my 40th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So we are now moving board from our public hearing to our public meeting. And if I could start with a motion to approve the agenda, and then because we're virtual, I'll need a roll call vote as well. So if I could get a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the March 23rd, 2020 Public Charter School Board meeting agenda.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, I got a motion and a second. All in favor. Steve Bumbaugh.
Aye.
Ricarda.m.ganjam.
Aye.
Jim Sandman.
Aye.
Naomi Shelton.
Aye.
Saba Bireda.
Aye.
Leah Crucy.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Unanimously, we have an agenda voted on. All right. Okay. Are there any public officials on the call who wish to speak or be recognized? Bree, if you press *9 or raise your hand through the Zoom app, Bree can unmute you. Any public officials?
There's one hand raised for Gina Mahony. I'm unmuting you now.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just anticipating the next item on the agenda. I'm not
Okay.
raising my hand as a public official, unless I got elected to something I didn't know about. Sorry.
We'll get, all right, if there are no, Bree, if there aren't any other, we did have one person who signed up earlier who was not, to be a public witness. Aaliyah Ferguson. Is Aaliyah Ferguson on the line? If you are, press *9 or raise your hand in Zoom. All right. Again, if there is any public comment that anyone wishes to submit, in particular on items that we discussed this evening, public comment at dcpcsb.org. If not, no Aaliyah Ferguson, we will then transition to our first vote item of the evening, the Pau PCS 20-year charter review. Nikhil, I believe you are leading the introduction there, and then we'll invite the Pau school leaders in addition to Ms. Mahony to join us.
Yep, thanks Rick. Good evening. Tonight, the board will vote on the charter review of Pau Public Charter School. I'll start by reading the standard of review. The School Reform Act requires the DC PCSB review a school's charter once every 5 years. The board must determine whether the school committed a violation of the law, as well as whether the school has met the goals and student academic achievement expectations set forth in its charter. If DC PCSB determines that the school has committed a violation of the law, its charter, or has not met its goals, DC PCSB may, at its discretion, revoke the school's charter. Additionally, there's a fiscal component to this review. We are required to revoke a school's charter if we determine that the school has engaged in a pattern of fiscal mismanagement or is no longer economically viable. With that standard stated, we'll now discuss Pau Public Charter School's 20-year charter review. Pau Public Charter School educates students at 2 campuses in the same facility in Ward 4. Pau Middle School, serving grades 6 through 8, and Pau International High School, serving grades 9 through 12. The school chose the performance management framework as its goals and committed to earning an average PMF score of 50% over the course of the review period at each of its campuses. The high school campus averaged a 54.8% and therefore met its charter goal. The middle school campus, however, averaged a 42.5%, thereby missing the goal. Therefore, the school overall has not met its charter goals. Pau's performance at its high school is strong, and performance at the middle school is improving due to an ongoing turnaround effort. These efforts have led to an 11-point increase in the middle school's PMF score from school year 2017-18 to school year 2018-19, as well as the school earning 3 stars on the Office of the State Superintendent of Education's STAR framework in the last year. However, Pau Middle School's overall PMF score has never reached 50% for the entirety of the review period, and progress towards meeting that target has been inconsistent. Therefore, DC PCSB staff recommends that the board exercise its discretion to continue the school's charter with the following conditions. Pau Public Charter School will cease admitting new students in grades 6 through 8 and phase out its middle school if it does not meet a series of progressively higher PMF targets or a score of 3 stars on OSCE STAR framework in each of the next 3 years. The targets are as follows: a score of 47 for school year 2019-20, 49 for school year 2020-21, and of at least 50 for school year 2021-22. Staff from the school are here to answer any of your questions. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Bree, well, first of all, anyone from Pau, if you could raise your hand on the system, press *9, Bree will unmute you. I just wanted to share a few thoughts on accountability before for the staff from Pau speak. And that's to share and go a little bit deeper on what Scott shared at the top of the meeting, which is, I think, is very relevant as we go into this vote. Staff's recommendation here includes conditions that require the school to meet specific performance targets on the PMF, which Nikhil just shared with us, and those begin this school year. I'm going to vote in support of this recommendation. However, I want to remind everyone that there are a number of schools like Paul that are under similar high stakes performance conditions for this year. Our world has changed, as has been noted several times during this evening, by the COVID-19 crisis. And as a result, we're thinking carefully about the impact that the pandemic will have on school performance and our accountability expectations. For that reason, we're looking at all aspects of our accountability systems, including the performance management framework, our financial analysis report, individual school goals, the standards for reviews and renewals, compliance expectations with DC PCSB policies and federal and local laws, and specific conditions that certain schools are held to. Our goal is to assess what changes need to be made in response to this unprecedented situation. So as part of this process, we will be holding listening sessions with school leaders to learn more about their perspectives and ideas on accountability, academics, testing, and other items for this year and next year. Our goal is to provide concrete suggestions for this for the PCSB board at our April meeting that will open for public comment, and then hold a public hearing on this in May and a vote in June. However, it may be that some changes need to be made more quickly, in which case we would be accelerating that schedule. So more to come there, but I think particularly important as we're talking about such a high stakes vote that we are taking this evening with respect to Paul, and we'll continue to entertain public comment as some of the specifics become, as we bring more of the specifics public across the next couple of months. With that, I would love it to open it up to the Paul team to share any remarks, and then board certainly give you an opportunity to ask any questions.
Okay, Tracy Wright, you are unmuted. Gina Mahony, you are unmuted.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Gina Mahony, and I'm the chair of the Board of Trustees at Paul Public Charter School. I've been on the board since 2015, and I'm on my second year as the board chair. First, I would like to thank the PCSB for its forbearance in our review that was scheduled for February. As you know, the school community is mourning the loss of 2 of our scholars. I am joined tonight by Paul's CEO, Dr. Tracy Wright, as well as 6 board members who are on this Zoom call. As all of you know, based on meetings with Dr. Wright and additional communications, we do not believe that any conditions should be imposed for continuing our charter. However, as we have made clear in other communications, if the PCSB decides to impose conditions, they should not include stair-step conditions that include automatic closure of our middle school for failure to meet a PMF target. Since the staff recommendation has not been amended to reflect the expected cancellation of the PARCC exam, we are interested in learning more about how the board will proceed. I now ask Dr. Wright, Paul's CEO, to speak more on the school's behalf. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Tracy Wright. I am the CEO of Paul Public Charter Schools. I also want to echo Gina's sentiment and thank you for your flexibility and allowance of time for us to engage in the grieving process after we lost our 2 beautiful scholars, Jamie Zelaya and Malachi Lukes. I also want to thank you for your time and for your consideration of the concerns that we raised with the PCSB staff's recommendation to continue our schools, specifically our middle school, with stair-step conditions that include automatic closure. As we come before you this evening, we are keenly aware that the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic has significantly shifted our climate, and as such, we are prepared to have a different conversation. The cancellation of PARCC, which is huge, especially when you think about our middle school, especially when you think about the fact that approximately 80% of the middle school PMF is connected to PARCC assessment data. The cancellation of the access test, both assessments are very important metrics that are included in the STAR framework. And other high stakes tests, along with the introduction of distance learning for an uncertain period of time, all these things have significant implications for the conditions proposed by the PCSB staff. In light of this uncertainty, we respectfully request that the PCSB board reconsider and vote to continue our charter with no conditions. We're here to answer any questions and look forward to this evening's dialogue.
Thank you. Board members, any questions?
I guess my question would be more so to the staff of the board. Because of all of the things that are up in the air as far as measuring performance, et cetera, what bearing does that have on the conditions that have been laid out? And will we be revisiting those conditions at all to just keep in mind that things are rapidly shifting because of COVID-19?
This is Scott. I think it's inevitable that we will be revisiting these conditions. However, our recommended approach to the board is that you vote on the conditions as is, because this is exactly the way we have treated other schools in similar situations. We will then have Paul being one of several schools that have stair-step conditions, and we can come back to you in April for a recommendation on how we treat all schools in that condition. And it's virtually certain that we will suggest changes given, as the school representatives mentioned, there will be no state assessment given this year.
I actually have a question about that. In our preliminary report, there's a statement in there that says that after the PCSB board votes, that there would be a charter amendment that we would need to sign off on by April 30th. Have some real significant concerns given the fact that we're not sure what the PMF is going to look like moving forward. We're not sure what the STAR framework is going to look like moving forward. We are in uncharted territory. Unlike financial modeling and also modeling around the spread of this virus, there is no modeling that lets us know how deeply our students' learning will be impacted moving forward and beyond this year. And so we're in a place where almost next year is like a new baseline where we'll learn a whole lot more about how our children being in this distance learning period really impacted their outcomes. That said, just have some real concerns about a vote for stair-step conditions in an environment that is unlike an environment that other schools may have received those conditions, where there may be no PMF, where there will be no PARCC scores, where there are no access scores. How do we in good conscience enter into an amendment where there's all that uncertainty?
I think those are all fair points. I would just note that the date to sign your charter amendment would be after the proposal by the board for how we would make global changes to accountability, including global changes to stair-step conditions. I don't know if Sarah Cheatham is on and wants to comment further on that, but I would hope that any signature to the charter amendment would be done with an understanding of what our intention is for addressing accountability changes that we'll be proposing in April.
I think, I'm not sure that that fully answers my question. So we're voting on conditions today that we have no idea what accountability will look like that would trigger those conditions?
We're recommending that the board vote on conditions that are similar to those that several other schools are under, and that then we would address all of those schools, which are all in similarly situated positions, together at the next board meeting.
Can I chime in for a moment, please? I understand and appreciate the staff's desire to treat all schools equally. When we voted on the conditions for other schools, we voted on them under very different circumstances. And I understand that we need to figure out how to proceed with Paul and other schools. I don't really see much of a point in voting on conditions that you're going to have to come back and redo. I just think it makes more sense to do all of this in one fell swoop, because we have a major job on our hands to figure out how we're going to measure performance at schools, and that's a bit of a blank slate right now. So whatever vote, I just want to say, we're all confused. We're all doing the best that we can, but I don't see the point in taking a vote that's purely perfunctory that we're going to have to redo in some short period of time. I think we should put our energy as a public charter school board into figuring out what the accountability metrics are going to be.
So I don't disagree with that. I know that we probably need to defer to legal counsel, but I also just want to note to the school and the representatives from the school that the tremendous gains that you all have made have definitely played into how we're thinking about this. Do not undercut your own trajectory of growth and what was possible before COVID-19, before all of those things, that you were already on such a significant trajectory that these conditions would be exceeded, right? So the idea of going into this with the mind of fear isn't necessary. And I know in the considerations that I'm making, I know that you all are taking every effort and putting forth all of the resources to make sure that you continue that growth. So just keep that in mind and know that once we hear from Sarah what we need to do to make sure that we're meeting the legal recommendations in terms of what we have to do to make sure that you all can continue and you have the continuance of your charter, that we are going to have to do a hard reset on everything. But I will leave that to legal counsel, but please do not undercut yourselves in terms of the growth and the trajectory that you all are on in terms of putting forth resources to turn the page in terms of the performance of your school and your students.
Second, everything Amy just said.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And we absolutely are going to always continue to push hard for our children because, you know, that's our moral responsibility. It's what we all signed up to do. With that, I do have to express deep concern with, again, you know, signing on for conditions in this kind of world and atmosphere of uncertainty. I've been doing this work for 25 years in Washington, D.C. I have never experienced something that I think is going to have the magnitude of impact on student learning and outcomes and social emotional growth and development that COVID-19 may have on our students. And so when we think about this accountability model, if we're going to be super responsibility and do due diligence to make sure that it is accurately capturing student growth and achievement after COVID-19, that is going to take some time. Again, we almost need to plan to baseline school year 2021. We're going to have to see what impact this has had on our students and then make decisions moving forward from that place. And so I am grappling with how we in good conscience and for the protection of our students sign on to an amended charter with conditions that, again, we have absolutely no clue what this whole thing is going to look like.
So a couple of thoughts. One is that I just want to echo what my colleague Naomi Shelton said in terms of the support that you should be feeling from the board who's made the decision, you know, where the proposal put forth by the staff suggests that we use our discretion to continue the school. And the conditions come from a place of wanting to do that in such a way that we feel comfortable that you will continue to meet the goals and continue to grow. And having visited the school, you can see the growth that you've made. I support the conditions as they're currently set out because I think it is very important that the way we treat Paul is consistent with the way that we've treated other schools who found themselves in similar situation where we've used our discretion to continue the school, yet have concerns, where they haven't met their goals, and we need to see continued performance. I completely hear the concern about the situation, the context that we're in right now. My greater fear is that we treat Paul at this point any differently, knowing that we are going to be looking to create a consistent way to apply accountability across all of our schools. Schools that are on stair-step conditions and schools that aren't. It's going to be a major project to make sure that we are transparent and consistent in how we do that. I would hate to create and don't feel comfortable supporting a one-off that we're not, on the flip side, we're not sure how the adjustments we make to the accountability process moving forward are going to impact the way we evaluate that school. So that's a risk I'm uncomfortable with, and knowing that we are undertaking a pretty massive review of how we're going to accommodate for this unprecedented situation. So that's sort of where I sort of stand on that. I don't feel comfortable adding another variable into into a time and a moment and into an accountability structure for your school that we don't know how that's going to interact with the changes. Whereas we can anticipate and will need to anticipate how whatever accountability looks like moving forward will interact with a stair-step set of conditions, which we have done for dozens of schools now.
Rick, why didn't you delay this vote?
Right, exactly.
I mean, how many other situations, you talked about consistency with the board's actions. How many times in the history of PCSB has the board been faced with a situation where the state assessment has been canceled and students have been moved to a distance learning environment with around 2 weeks notice? It is, as you said, unprecedented. And I'm not an expert on the proceedings here, but it seems to me there's another option available.
So in my mind, the safest route forward, and other board members may disagree with me, is to stick with the process that we have in place at the moment, and then vote, and then vote on a set of accountability changes that we're going to need to make across the board.
This is Jim Sandman.
Go ahead, Jim.
I agree with Steve's recommendation. I think we should defer this. The first stair step applies to this academic year. It's inconceivable to me that we're not going to have to reconsider these conditions in light of the current circumstances. I just can't see that not happening. And I think that would be treating Paul then consistently with the other schools. They would all be subject to whatever revisions we decide are appropriate in light of the current circumstances. I think the wise thing to do right now is to defer rather than to adopt a condition for the current year that I can't imagine will be applied.
I'd like to just say I agree with both Jim and Steve. I do think I might differ with some board members in that I do think Paul is different. It is a middle school connected to a tier 1 high school. I do think that the stair-step conditions we've had for other schools may not apply here, just given that difference and that we have a tier 1 high school connected here for accountability purposes. But I absolutely agree with Jim and Steve. I just think at this point we don't have enough information for our board members to assess the different options that are available to us. And I would like to also agree with Naomi. I really don't actually think you're ever going to be in a situation of facing closure because you are on an upward trajectory. I even think you'll be able to withstand whatever impact COVID-19 has. I've been to your school. I see the dedication of your teachers and your students and your families. You've already earned 3 stars. I really just don't actually think you're going to deal with this situation, but I do appreciate that. I think you are in a different situation than some of the other schools we've had.
And this is Naomi. I have said that I think we should defer as well. So I agree with Steve Jim and Saba in that, you know, us taking a vote just for the sake of taking a vote. I think it was good for us to have this conversation, but just in light of all the different elements that are up in the air right now, I don't, no pun intended, that we should probably table this. I don't know what we need to do in terms.
Can I just, sorry, I just wanted to make one statement about why delaying the vote could be problematic. The reason that we try and have all reviews done by the end of March has a lot to do with the My School DC lottery and the fact that people will know in the coming weeks what schools that they got into. And knowing which schools have been renewed and continued gives families the ability to make that decision, knowing that the school is going to be continued. So that's sort of the thinking.
Understood. In terms of the technicality, is it possible for us to amend what the conditions are, to amend what we're going to vote on to say that, you know, things
we could
Excuse
vote.
me, could we unmute Sherry Ingram, please? Our attorney. I'm sorry to interrupt.
She's unmuted.
Thank you.
Go ahead, whoever was speaking. I think it was you, Naomi.
I was hoping that we could have legal counsel from the board go ahead and walk us through what we need to adjust so that we can take the vote. So there's the continuum, that we know that the charter is continuing, but at the same time.
May I add something before that? I mean, the vote you have to take and what the legal standard here is the vote to revoke the charter or not. Unless there's a motion to revoke and 4 votes to revoke, the charter will continue. You don't have to vote to continue. This charter will continue unless the board has a majority vote for revocation.
Right.
And I say that because I agree with what several of the board members have said, which is that if you vote for the recommendations that are put in front of you right now, which includes a PMF target for this year, there won't be a PMF for this year because you couldn't fairly come up with a score when there's not a park. 80% of the points or something north of 75% of the points come out of a park test that's not going to be administered this year. And what's I think even more troubling for me is, and going to be difficult for you as a board, as you think about the accountability going forward, is I have a child at home. We're doing distance learning. I'm not a teacher. I'm doing the best I can. My teachers are supporting me the best I can. But the students are losing instruction time. They're going to lose probably 3 months of instruction time if the schools don't go back this year. Fairfax County isn't going back. I don't know what DC is going to do. That's not just going, so there's not going to be a way to have a PMF for this school year. So you'd be voting on conditions that I couldn't advise my client to sign off on because I know they can't meet it because there's not going to be a PMF for this year that they could be measured on. So you're going to have to negotiate on that anyhow, but it's not just going to affect this year. I think if you hold task meetings with school leaders, which you should do because you need to hear how the distance learning is going.
Yeah, and when we
right.
said we were.
We are. So I think
also, I think it's important. I think it's important that this board not take legal advice from
I'm not
the
asking
school's counsel.
Scott, I wasn't finished talking, and if you could wait, I would just like to say that you should hear from leaders that it's going to not only happen this year, but it's going to happen next year. And so voting on conditions that we know they can't meet because you're not going to have the PMF this year to meet them. And I wouldn't advise my client to sign off on the PMF for next year until they know how this year is going to go. I think that you have the discretion to not, I'm not asking you to treat schools differently. You're going to have to deal with what has happened here. You have the discretion to revisit it.
Ms. Ingram, thank you for that. I do want to point out that we have been thoughtful about this. I know that Scott and the team have been thinking about how we are going to address all of this going forward. So know that those considerations are being, that is being taken into account of how all of this is going to move forward. I would like for Scott, if we could have whatever we need to do to be able to move forward today on this particular matter with this particular school. Can we have what the recommendation is for the action that the board should or should not take today?
First of all, I believe that the board needs to take action at the 5-year review and at the 10-year review, and every 5 years. That is specified in the law. So not taking action, I don't think, is an acceptable option. However, the board does not need to act tonight. The board would feel more comfortable waiting. It can do that. The other alternative would be that if the board isn't comfortable voting on the specific recommendation as staff has laid it out, you also have the option of voting to amend the recommendations to continue the school subject to conditions that will be proposed by staff at the April board meeting. So I'd say you have 3 options. One is to defer the vote entirely. The second is to take the vote as is, or the third would be to vote but amend the recommendation to vote based to continue the school based on conditions that will be proposed by staff at the April board meeting.
I would
Scott,
propose we vote on the third.
Go ahead.
Option would be to Nikhil's point, so that there can be a signal to families before the lottery results come out.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, and what is this signal? And I think that has been an ongoing question and or concern. What is the signal to families that the PCSB is attempting to send about Paul, this school that has increased their enrollment exponentially, this school that backfills seats, this school that has almost 50% of their student population, that has unique learning needs. And with that, we continue to push forward and have a tier 1 school and strong gains in the middle school. What is the message to families that we're racing to send about our performance?
Well, we would be sending the signal that if we were to take the option, one of the options proposed, that we would vote to move forward in with the continuance of the school, but that we would delay a vote on a set of conditions that we could vote on at a later time.
And Rick, what would the process be for the new set of conditions? What would we get those in advance? What would the timetable be for consideration?
I think we would need to determine what that would look like based upon the process that we are going to need to undertake in order to ensure that we've thought through what accountability changes and policies we would need to make to address all schools' challenges. So we would need to dovetail that with the larger project of understanding and proposing a set of rules looking forward as to what accountability would look like.
So we don't know how much advance time we would have to review the conditions.
And
I mean, that's 30 days from now, right?
But I also want to emphasize this: when we are working with schools that have not met their goals, these conditions are not negotiations with schools. They are conditions that the board is establishing to be comfortable continuing the school. It's not a negotiated set of conditions.
May I jump in for a moment? We are all flying blind right now. We're all doing our best, but we're all flying blind. We could have this conversation go on a long time. I don't think we are prepared to take a vote tonight. We as the public charter school board have to keep our finger on the pulse of what is happening in our city, and we have to figure out fairly quickly how to evaluate our schools. I don't think we are prepared to do that tonight, and I would propose that we delay this vote until a point when we have accountability measures that take into account no park this year and all of the other changes that are likely to take place. That's my proposal. I don't know if I need to say that in a motion, but I don't think we're prepared to take a vote tonight.
I'm comfortable with deferring the vote. So Steve, if you want to, I don't even know if we need to vote to defer that, but if we want to defer the vote till the next meeting, I'm comfortable with that.
If we don't have to vote to not vote?
Yeah, I think we just delay.
We
can
just
delay.
say that we're deferring or delaying or
Yeah.
whatever we need to. Sarah, what do we need to say?
Yeah.
How does this work? Robert's rules, like what do we need to do?
We can delay the vote.
Awesome.
I think that is the will of the majority of the board.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just one second, I just want to make sure that we don't lose one thing on this, is that I think you hear from all of our board members a real hopefulness in this time of not much hope about the work that you all have done at Paul and in the middle school. And I want to make sure that that is, to the points made by other board members, not lost, and that we had very much been looking forward to seeing the continued progress and development of the work at the middle school. So I hope that you can appreciate that sentiment from our board.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Rick.
On behalf of the entire Paul Champs team, thank you.
And I just want to jump in and offer, Dr. Wright was kind enough to take some time to chat with me earlier this week. And she shared with me that during these early days of distance learning, they had something over 90%, 94% attendance rate. They had, on the heels of unimaginable trauma, quickly managed to figure out a way to serve students who are getting very, very, very hands-on in-person trauma therapy and figure out a way to adapt that into a virtual environment. And so amazing work. Thank you for all that you do.
Yeah,
thank you, Leah. We have 275 to 300 kids a day coming to the school for meals. So we are keeping our arms around them, which is, I think, gives a lot of comfort to the staff too.
And they're getting direct instruction every day. They're getting counseling services, social work services, even in AP boot camp to get ready for the AP test, whatever that looks like. It's tremendous work, and we're really, really proud of it. And thank you so much for your support.
Great. Thank you all. All right, so we are going to switch gears now, and if we can invite Olivia to the panel and begin with our new charter application.
Thank you.
Okay. Olivia, you're on.
Hello. Hey, Rick, could we take a 5-minute break? I
Sure.
don't know when you were planning on taking a break, but I need one.
Thank you.
Okay. Should we take a break?
Okay.
We can take a break.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
We're going to take a 5-minute break, Olivia, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
I see where it's going. Okay, so I love every single harmony you guys did together.
All right, do we have all of our board members back? Carta.
Steve here.
Steve.
Naomi here.
Great, thank you. Jim, Saba, Leah. Okay, Olivia.
All right. Hello, I'm Olivia Gussman. I'm a specialist on the Fidelity Applications and School Climate team. Tonight, DC Public Charter School Board staff will ask the board to vote on four new school charter applications. These applications have been carefully considered by a DC PCSB staff review team. DC PCSB also worked with external expert consultants when appropriate. All applications were evaluated against our standard for approval. DC PCSB's charter application review process includes the assessment of a written application, a capacity interview, a public hearing, and when needed, site visits. All materials, including the written applications, transcripts of capacity interviews and public hearings and staff analyses can be found on DC PCSB's website. Tonight, lead reviewers will provide a brief overview of their respective applications before asking you to vote. All ANCs were notified regarding these applications. Any applicants approved this evening will still need to identify a location, and the DC PCSB board will hold a separate hearing about that topic. I'd now like to invite the lead reviewer of Washington Arabic to present.
Great. Bria, I think that is Abby, if you can unmute her.
Okay, great. Hello, my name is Abby Getzel, and I'm the lead reviewer of the Washington Arabic Charter application. Tonight, I'm asking you to vote on this application. The Washington Arabic founding team proposes to open an Arabic language immersion school with a commitment to early literacy in both English and Arabic. The school's mission says, "We believe that the intellectual promise of each student is enhanced in a multilingual community that incorporates and celebrates diversity. We challenge students to think critically and creatively, to know themselves as learners developing into a global citizens in a joyful environment." The school plans to locate in Ward 6, but is also open to locating in Wards 1, 4, or 5. At capacity, the school proposes to serve 544 students in grades pre-K 3 through 5. This team applied last year.
Is this where we should jump in?
You can go, Leah.
Hi, I am the board member that was assigned as kind of team lead on this application. So I had the opportunity to engage with the applicant team and understand the changes that they had made to their plan since their first submission last year. I want to offer at the onset how much I appreciate how incredibly thorough the PCSB staff is in ensuring that we understand the standard of approval, that we understand the kind of rigorous process they go through, particularly for applicants that apply again, to understand the differences that may have been made to the application and the applicant team since the previous applications. And I'll say that for this team, I'd been intrigued last year, intrigued with the idea, but I understood that the application just was not yet thoroughly developed. I've been impressed over the past year to see how the founding team in particular has expanded to bring on expertise in early childhood development, expertise in building a immersion language school altogether, in expertise in Arabic translation and in an immersion environment in public schools. I continue to be very intrigued with this application. I've been thinking and reflecting on the concerns raised by the staff on the need to further develop the plan. and have engaged in some questions to try to understand throughout the charter sector when other schools that are similarly kind of new in concept, where there haven't been a lot of other examples elsewhere in the country to learn from, what had been the questions years ago when those applications had been presented and those models had been presented, what had they had learned to try to anticipate what that could look like for a school like this. I'll offer that I intend to vote in favor of this. As much as I understand and appreciate and respect where the staff have been on this application, I find myself in a moment where we all need to be inspired by something. Throughout this sector, there are many, many leaders, social entrepreneurs who are coming with new ideas to think about the future of learning, the future of needs of students here in DC now and anticipate going forward and what families are looking for. And I find myself optimistic that this founding team will be able to manifest that over the course of the next year or so in getting their plan into place. I'd like to pass the mic to my colleagues who may have other questions or comments as they've reflected on this resubmission.
Great. Thank you, Leah. Other board members, any remarks before we take a vote? I'll jump in here as well. I was similarly encouraged and intrigued when the school came before us last year. And I think I was one of many of us who encouraged them to address some of the shortcomings, some of the gaps that we discussed at the time last spring, and come back to us. And I was pleased to see them come back, having addressed many, if not all, of the areas that I thought, and I think many of us agreed, were areas that they needed to continue to develop. I was also particularly impressed with the additions that they made to their team across the last year to not only on paper and in their plan further develop their idea and demonstrate to us how it would come to life, but to also share with us how they had brought in the team that would take that idea to execution. And I, as Leah just shared, I too intend to vote in favor of Washington Arabic, and will be, if approved, we'll be excited to see how they proceed in the coming year and a half. Any of our board members have any other remarks or thoughts to share? Naomi?
So I do, I absolutely agree with Leah in terms of the idea of these new iterations of schools coming forth and being helpful as we think about what's possible for students here in DC. I think my challenge here is the number of recommended conditions to me demonstrate that the application is not as thorough as it could or should be. So I will be I'll be voting to deny this application, but not without the idea of the amount of work that they did take to turn the corner and bring on additional staff and experts into their process. But with the number of conditions that are outlined here, it just feels like there's some work still left to be done. But that's not to say that the work that they've done from last year to this was not substantial, but just the idea of all of these things having to be considered, to me, that demonstrates that there's that the founding team just is not ready at this time.
Thank you, Naomi.
Mm-hmm. I shared some of those concerns. I do think the team came back stronger this year and really listened to a lot of the suggestions by the staff. Probably most concerning to me, which will be a theme tonight for me, is the lack of demonstrated demand. I think it's a fascinating idea. I just don't think that the team has been able to show there's enough demand for a school of this size, given our current environment and available kids to fill those seats. So I will also be voting to deny this application, but do want to recognize the hard work and the ingenuity that went into this application.
And this is Jim. I agree with Naomi and Saba. I do appreciate the changes in the application from last year to this. I wasn't on the board last year when the prior application was submitted, but I have read the materials carefully and do see the improvement. I agree that all of the conditions the proposed conditions are necessary, but I think Naomi has put it well. The number of conditions that are necessary is a signal of something to me. It's a signal that more work needs to be done, that the application isn't yet where it needs to be before I would be comfortable approving it.
Thank you, Jim. Unless there are other remarks that want to be made, I'm happy to take a motion on this, and we'll see where the board is.
I move, and this is Naomi, I move to deny the charter application of Washington Arabic based on the issues identified in the board proposal.
I second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to deny and a second. All in favor of denial. I will go through our list by roll call vote, and we'll see. We'll see how this fares. So Steve Bumbaugh.
Aye.
Ganjam.
Aye.
Okay, I'll come back to Ricarda.
Aye. I think my volume went out. Can you hear me now? Aye.
Okay. Okay. Jim Sandman.
Aye.
Naomi Shelton.
Aye.
Saba Bireda.
Aye.
Leah Crucy.
Nay.
And Rick Cruz, my vote is nay. The ayes for denial have it. This motion to deny the charter application will stand. All right.
Thank you to the team for all of their hard work. I want to underscore that the work from turning the corner from last year to this year was substantial, but thank you all for your work.
All right. Melody Sampson will now be presenting us with the Garden Education School of Business and Entrepreneurship.
Hi, my name is Melody Sampson, and I'm the lead reviewer of the Garden Education School of Business and Entrepreneurship's charter application. Tonight, I'm asking you to vote on this application. The Garden Education's founding team proposes a high school focused on developing students' business and entrepreneurship skills. The school's mission says, we are holistically preparing students to build their future. We aim to intellectually grow, culturally affirm, financially educate, and emotionally support the next generation of innovators. The school seeks a Ward 8 location with 410 students at capacity. This team applied last year.
All right.
Should I go ahead?
Yes, Ricarda, please.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I and Naomi both had the opportunity to take a lead in looking at the Garden School application this year. And I want to start by thanking the school team and the DCPSB staff for all of the intense work that it took to review this application, to be a part of this process, and also recognizing that this was the second year that this application has come before us. I am really wowed by the passion of this founding group for bringing this new approach to the city. I do believe that more programs focused on middle skills and preparing students for entering the workforce through new career and technology endeavors is highly needed, and that we need more than traditional college preparatory programs in the city. The team has shown a deep expertise in community building and the systemic issues that continue to perplex our citizens in Ward 7 and 8 community. And they've really showed that they could engage the community and build some support for the idea of the school. They've also built some strong relationships to support entrepreneurship with many successful entrepreneurs who we heard from at the last board meeting, and really appreciated the support that they have started to collect in the region. With that said, and really appreciating everything that they've done, there are significant areas that we felt still needed attention. And while I appreciate the shift in aligning the school with the desire to meet the needs of the community, this shift in the curriculum still leaves many questions open around the career and technology education and curriculum that would be provided there in order to make the program successful. The career tracks remain largely undeveloped, and the team had concerns about the plan for an inclusive model that works with the spectrum of students with special needs in DC. The other piece, I think their team has great school experience, notably elementary experience. We do know, however, that the experience with high school matters for student achievement. And there's a need for more high school relevant academic experience in this application to detail out the high school curriculum. So while I'm really excited about the idea around middle skills and career education opportunities, at this point, I didn't feel that the application was ready to move forward, and I will not be supporting this application this year. Naomi, do you have anything you'd like to add?
So I think it's really important that we acknowledge the representative from the redesign team, Ms. Nichols, from the redesign team of the two schools east of the river, and how they're making strides in terms of meeting some of these needs, addressing some of the challenges that we've heard and seen over the last few years, and really being thoughtful about how to support students in the economic climate that we're in now, and how we've overcorrected around some of the work that was being done in schools, and they're trying to close that gap. So while I truly appreciate the team's leaning in and the amount of community support that was offered at the last meeting, I think there's still some significant gaps in terms of what I've read, but also in what the staff has provided as examples of some legitimate concerns. In the shift in curriculum, there are still some questions in terms of how the school would work through those things. And I think any recommendations we would have in terms of conditions would just be too heavy of a lift to try to say that this is ready to go, locked and loaded. So I, like Ricarda, am very pleased with the tenacity of the founding group to pivot from last year's application to this year. However, just in terms of meeting the standard and the conditions that would be necessary, I don't think I will not be supporting the application. But I also want to just give a head nod and appreciation to the team that has been redesigning the high schools that are east of the river. And that is to everyone's credit in terms of having competition, having there be the idea of what do we need to do to be as competitive in this market as some of the other schools that have come on to onto the DC Public Charter School Board's docket. So thank you.
I want to build on to what my colleagues have offered. I found the public comment during the meeting before all this happened to be really quite inspiring. The kind of chorus of demand and interest and for something like this. While I will also not be voting in favor of the application, I'm really hopeful that there are a number of potential partners and stakeholders that could realize an adaptation of this, maybe not manifested as a school, but something similar that I think our city could really benefit from. So I'm hopeful that there are a number of those stakeholders paid attention to this and have their creative juices flowing for how to build on what has clearly gotten started and sparked a lot of interest from people who have a whole lot to offer our city and the broader region. So thank you for the team.
I really agree with Leah. I think that was so well said. I kept thinking during the public comment, like, yes, we want to continue to see this type of activity and work, especially east of the river. And there was obviously just so much passion on the team that while I will be voting to deny a charter here, I do hope that you continue that work, because it would be really a shame to not bottle that energy and focus it into hopefully maybe working with the Anacostia and Blue teams that we heard from tonight. There's a lot of room for collaboration in high schools east of the river, and so I hope that happens.
If I could jump in, I would just like to say that in the served on this board, the Garden School and iDream Academy really stand out as two teams that co-architected a school idea with community members. There was a woman who spoke who said, usually these school leaders come and ask us for our opinion about their idea rather than asking about, she said, our ideas. The difference to me with the Garden School and iDream Academy, I want to be really precise here, is that iDream Academy's team worked in the community for 3 years. They went across the country looking at models from which they could build out a template for their school. And their founding team had 50 years collectively of in-school experience. That's the part with the Garden School that's missing for me, is that beyond Ms. Na, there wasn't a lot of direct school and classroom experience. So I think you got a big part of the formula right, but it's still a school. And it was the experience of working in and running a school that to me wasn't completely, it didn't meet our standard. So sadly, I will also be voting to deny the application.
Great, thank you, Steve. Any other remarks?
This is Jim. I agree with my colleagues.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Similarly, I'm aligned with the rest of my board members, and again, just want to express how thankful we are to have teams of such talented people, and Ms. Na at the leadership of this team, working with communities and communities to help uncover what they want, and as my colleague Steve just so well said, the missing pieces, the team to execute on that vision that would have distinguished this from to an application that we could have, or I could have voted in favor of. With that, I will take a motion on the Garden School.
I move to deny the charter application of the Garden Education School of Business and Entrepreneurship based on the issues identified in the board proposal.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Steve Baumbaugh?
Aye.
Ricarda.m.ganjam?
Aye.
Jim Sandman?
Aye.
Naomi Shelton?
Aye.
Saba Bireda?
Aye.
Leah Crucy?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Thank you again to the Garden Education School team, as I hope you'll take away from tonight's commentary, if not the vote, is a belief in both the idea that you have and also the way you've gone about in fleshing out that idea and engaging the community. And I think hope from this board that you'll find another way to manifest that vision. So thank you all. All right, next application. Nicole and the Capital Experience Lab.
Hello, my name is Nicole Cole, and I am the lead reviewer of the Capital Experience Lab charter application. Tonight, I am asking you to vote on this application. The Capital Experience Lab founding team proposes an inquiry and community-based learning middle and high school program. The school's mission is to empower 6th through 12th grade students in Washington, D.C. to harness the resources of their world-class city in the service of their dreams. The school seeks a location in Ward 6, and at capacity, it plans to serve 700 students.
Great, thank you, Nicole. So I'll jump in here and start off the conversation, as I was a board lead on this application alongside my colleague, Jim Sandman. And as a board lead, we had the benefit of not only doing a deep read of the application, but we had the opportunity to participate in the capacity interview, ask questions of the leadership and the full founding team, and listen firsthand to their plans for how they would go about making this vision a reality. We also, as did my board members, the rest of the board members, and by recognizing work and the creativity that went into the development of the model proposed in the application. It's a compelling idea, and one that really resonated with many students and parents, and one that's garnered the attention and support of leaders in the community. It's not lost on me who came forth to speak in support of the application. Both folks knew what it means to build a new school and a new charter school, as well as many individuals who have a long time experience and history in the city supporting school and education. I'm intrigued by what the school proposes to accomplish and many of the approaches it seeks to employ. I also am really appreciative of the piloting that the school has done over the course of many years, testing various approaches and methodologies, and especially providing students with a window into what the school one day might look like. I'm really supportive of the vision and the passion that the founding group brought to the application. All that said, I simply don't believe that the plan is in its current state developed enough to meet our standard of approval. This can be remedied, but I think the gap is significant enough that it couldn't be addressed through conditions. Instead, I believe that the founding group would do well to take another year to further develop its program. Several of our most innovative and successful schools have benefited greatly from additional time, and I think the Capital Experience Lab would as well. Specifically, sort of three things that very much swayed my decision and my vote. One is the plan to deliver on the core ideas to make real the integration of the academic content and the real world experience came across to me as insufficient, in particular in the high school years. Lack of clarity for me, number two, around the academic leadership of the program that would drive the ongoing development of the program between now and into the planning year and to day one. And then I also have questions, still have questions about the case for demand and whether it's robust enough. So I will not be a vote in favor of approving this application, but I'd love to hear what my other board members are thinking.
I'd like to weigh in, Rick.
Mm-hmm. Steve?
So I will be voting in favor of this application, and I'd like to explain why. One, this is an innovative model, and the reason I continue to be excited about the charter sector is because I think it is a laboratory of innovation, and this is an example of that. Also, 7 years ago, I helped to run a teacher fellowship in this town, and Allison Gilmeister, one of the co-founders, was a fellow, and of the 100 or so fellows I worked with, Allison was the single most impressive. So I have the fullest faith in her ability to be able to deliver on this. Third, I'm struggling to think of a single application in the time I've served on this board that has 3 years of data informing the model. I fully understand that a summer program and a school are not exactly the same, but it is as much of a proxy as we've seen in the 5 years I've been on this board, and they have pivoted and they have adapted their models in ways that are reflected in test score rises on standardized tests that we all recognize. I also thought this was easily the best and most thorough application in this pool, and one of the best I've read in the 5 years I've been on the board. So that's why I'm going to vote yes.
Thank you, Steve.
This is Jim. I participated with Rick in the meeting with the proponents of the application. I agree with Rick. There are 4 reasons why I'm not comfortable supporting the application, but I do want to say that I agree that this is a very attractive concept. I think it is true that we have a unique resource here of enormous educational potential in the combination of our museums and government institutions and monuments and arts organizations. There is great potential there. I like the idea very much, but there are 4 reasons why I'm not comfortable approving the application at this point. First, I don't think that there has been an adequate demonstration of demand, likely enrollment, and need. To me, the camp concept that underlies the case for opening a school is not a good proxy for a school experience. I looked at the surveys that have been completed over the past 4 years, and I counted only 28 that had been completed by family members. That strikes me as a small sample size of the people who are going to be the principal decision makers about whether to send their students to this school. And I don't think there's really been any testing of the attractiveness of the concept to high school students. So the first is I just don't see the demonstration of demand that I would want to see in support of a concept that is brand new in our city. Second, I don't think the proposal for the high school component of the application has been adequately developed. It doesn't get sufficient attention in the application. Third, I am concerned about what the staff reports regarding historical outcomes with similar schools in other cities trying to serve the same populations. And finally, I don't think that there has been an adequate demonstration of addressing the needs of special populations, particularly students with disabilities and English learners. I think it could be further developed. The application could be further developed to meet my concerns, but those 4 things make me uncomfortable with voting to approve at this time.
Thank you, Jim.
I'll follow. I don't think I'll have much more of a unique perspective to offer than what Jim just outlined. I agree with those. My initial concern when I met with the team a few months ago, well, first, my first reaction when I met with the team a few months ago is, wow, this is a really cool idea, and I'm somewhat surprised we hadn't heard of it yet here in DC. But the extrapolation of expressed enthusiasm from camp to what a decision a parent or student might make for actually enrolling in school, and particularly high school, is one that I'm not sure I'm fully bought into yet. I have a question that I don't think has been adequately responded to by the team yet on how this could work. Is the inclusion of a high school solely about the concept in this program model, or is it really about making sure that a budget can work for this school? And I know that the response during our public hearing last month was the program model requires it. I'm just not, I haven't gotten convinced on that part of it yet. So for the 4 reasons that Jim just outlined, with that elaboration, I'll also not be voting in support. I'll just express that I hope this team does continue working on this plan and does come back. I'm very compelled by the strong recommendation, an expression of confidence in Allison's leadership. And I understand that an idea like this was something that I think it was School Without Walls had been like in its original concept many years ago, so that the communities in DC are familiar with and somewhat out of the box idea like this. So I hope to see this team come back again with a plan that's more fully developed based on the guidance from the PCSB team.
Thanks.
So I'll just weigh in a few things as well on this application. First, I was absolutely wowed by the founding team for this school. I think that I also met with them as they were developing their program, and was really fascinated by the plan that they were putting together, having been through the middle school selection process myself 3 times in the last 4 years. I do feel that this is a middle school program that many parents would be compelled to engage in. And I think that the strong pilot program that they've done over time has given them valuable feedback that they've incorporated. I do agree that the high school program needs more development, and that is the piece that has given me a little bit more pause. I was very excited about the academic experience that they would provide, and I think that even in this time as we're in COVID, the first emails that I started to get from schools was the virtual museum tours that are available to students. And so I was thinking about ways that a school like this could take advantage of the technology available to them as well. But that may be because I work in technology too. But anyway, my point is I was completely supportive of this middle school program. I would love to see a way to support this school in the future as they continue to develop out the high school program. And really thank you to this team for coming forward with such an innovative program. And I do also know that they have worked hard to build relationships in Board 6. And I'm pretty confident that they would find an acceptable site to make this school happen in Board 6 and accomplish their goals.
Thank you, Ricarda.
And I'll just piggyback Ricarda's statement and also add that I believe 2 years ago, I had asked the staff if it were possible to approve a school with a 2-year runway versus 1 year. In the case that there was a school that we truly believed in, but just needed more time. Because that's not possible, I think I still will vote in support of the application because I believe it is strong, and there will be conditions that could be put forth that would meet some of the concerns, which the concerns here are very different from some of the other applications, but in the thought of how we have gone about this in the past and schools being able to come back and resubmit, I think that would be my recommendation to this founding team, and to, kind of rethink, because I think the sweet spot here is middle school, to rethink the application as it currently stands. We know that across this city, but across the country, there's a huge gap in terms of what's possible in innovation in middle school. We also know that that's a very troubling time, and hat tip to all the former and current middle school teachers. So I vote more so out of the confidence of what's possible, versus, and us not having a process of a 2-year runway versus 1 year.
Thank you, Naomi. So at this time, I'll put it to a vote, and I will take a motion. Someone?
I move to approve the charter application of Capital Experience Lab based on, I move to approve the charter application of Capital Experience Lab with the conditions as proposed by staff.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Okay, so roll call here. Steve Bumbow.
Aye.
Ricarda.m.ganjam.
Aye.
Jim Sandman.
No.
Naomi Shelton.
Aye.
Saba Bireda.
Nay.
Leah Crucy.
Nay.
And this is Rick Cruz, and a nay. So that motion fails. So could I get another motion?
I move to deny the charter application of Capital Experience Lab based on the issues identified in the board proposal.
Thank you, Naomi. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. Start again. Steve Bumbow. Motion to deny.
Nay.
Ricarda.m.ganjam.
Nay.
Jim Sandman.
Aye.
Naomi Shelton.
Nay.
Saba Bireda.
Aye.
Leah Crucy.
Aye.
So Rick Cruz, aye. The motion passes. The charter application is denied. Again, Capital Experience Lab, I think you heard from all of us as to how much we believe in the vision and what you're trying to do. And I think it was a unanimous belief that this could add real value to the children, the students, the families of DC, and hope that you do indeed come back next year. All right. Fourth and final application before us this evening, Pete Petrin, and he'll be presenting the Global Citizens application.
Hello, my name is Pete Petrin, and I'm the lead reviewer of the Global Citizens Charter application. Tonight, I'm asking you to vote on this application. Global Citizens proposes to open a dual language immersion program offering tracks in both Spanish and Mandarin. This school intends to serve students in grades PK3 through 5, and the program's mission is to inspire and prepare the next generation of global citizens. The school seeks to locate in Ward 7 or 8 and educate 525 students at capacity.
Thanks, Pete. Who would like to open us up?
I'll open us up, Rick. There were 2 language immersion applications in this group of applications, and I felt that both of them had some very promising elements, and each of them also had some holes that should be filled. With Global Citizens, I thought I was encouraged that, or I am encouraged that they're proposing to meet a demand that we've heard about for quite some time for language immersion east of the Anacostia River. I think opening a school for which there is not, where the community does not have a lot of experience with that type of school, opening it with a relatively complex model like 2 languages is something that this team should reconsider if their application is approved. The reason I'm going to vote in favor of Global Citizens, whereas I did not for Washington Arabic, is because of their founding team. Dr. Natalie Smith and Jenifer Moore have experience standing up a Tier 1 language immersion school in Sela, and that is enough to give me confidence that in the year and a half they would have to stand up this school, they could fill in some of the holes that I will be voting yes on this proposal.
Thank you, Steve.
I can go next. I was very excited by this application. I definitely see the need for more immersion choices east of the river, although I will acknowledge that we have seen some growth in that area, which is an excellent development for our city. I very much appreciate the hard work the team has done to assess demand for their school. The Saturday schools and other language meetups are a great way to introduce this idea to communities east of the river. Unfortunately, given the number of unfilled pre-K seats in Ward 7 and 8, I don't believe there will be sufficient demand to support the school opening in the year 2021. And as you know, we have opened several elementary charter schools east of the river, and I have concerns that those schools will not be able to reach full capacity. So have really serious concerns about the ability to bring another school into that area, into the sector. If the school is not approved, I do encourage the team to continue doing its work to bring language instruction east of the river, and very much appreciate, like I said, all the work it's done thus far.
Thank you, Saba. Any other board members like to make any remarks?
This is Jim. I think this is a strong application from a strong team. I do agree with Steve's suggestion that the founding team reconsider the dual approach. I just wonder if they're biting off more than they can chew. That's not a reason for me to deny the application as presented, but I do share Steve's concern about that.
Great. Thank you, Jim.
Hi, I'll just say, to reiterate what Steve and Jim have said, also very excited, and Saba excited about these, about dual language programs, and also share the concern on opening with 2 languages, and would encourage the team to consider scaling back to 1 language as they open, but very excited about the promise of this school. And thank you to the team.
Thanks, Ricarda.
This is Lee. I agree with both of those remarks on the enthusiasm and the preparedness of the team in the application, the concept, and encourage the team to, I share that's the same concern about filling seats. So with all of that said, I still intend to support this application.
Thank you, Leah. Naomi?
I second, third, and fourth the previous comments. I do believe the strength of the founding team and their experience speaks volumes, but the concern around specifically the programs that we've seen go into that area of the city, and whether or not there's a demonstrated desire for a school like this to be there. In Ward 8, I don't necessarily see that. I truly appreciated, beyond a shadow of a doubt, the the students who spoke on behalf of the school earlier. And I do think it's important for language immersion schools, but the idea of 2 languages, how how all of those things would happen in terms of the enrollment process, et cetera. I just have questions around, and that's my dog sneezing. I apologize.
All right. I intend to vote in support of this application. I so appreciated and valued the enthusiasm of the founding team, but more so than the enthusiasm and the vision, the competence and the quality of this team. What a great team to move forward with building this unique resource for students and families in DC. So I'll be voting in support of it. Can I take a motion?
Can I ask whether or not it's possible to have a friendly amendment?
Yes, friendly. Say,
Thank you.
You need a condition?
A condition of like a period of time where the school opens with one language and adds a language later. Or if there is even an interest in that.
Yeah, if perhaps given where it seems the board's intent is on this application, Pete, could you share with us the current conditions that we might want to move forward with, so we can consider if there is another one that we'd want to add?
Absolutely. And for all of these conditions, they would be subject to revisions and final approval by PCSB, consistent with their charter application guidelines. Staff currently has 4 proposed conditions for this application. One being a reduced enrollment ceiling that would have the school open with 100 students in PK3 to PK4 in their first year of operation, and grow by 50 students each year to reach a maximum enrollment of 400 students, serving PK3 to 5. Also, our second condition is submitting a comprehensive plan detailing its support for students enrolling in non-entry grades. So for students enrolling in grades PK4 to 5, what that support would look like. Our third condition is a promotion policy detailing how their standards-based grading system will be used in decisions about student promotion and retention. And our fourth proposed condition is a supplemental plan for serving students with disabilities, describing how its curriculum, staffing plan, and professional development plan will support students outside of the general education setting full time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, thank you. So, given the smaller student enrollment that is a condition, I wonder if board members continue to have concern about 2 languages.
Say that again.
Given the smaller enrollment that's being proposed as one of the staff conditions, whether there remains concern about some of the complexities that were expressed earlier.
I mean, for me, that just raises other questions. If there's, this is kind of multivariate. Like, do we know of do we have an idea of express demand of one language over another? For me, the question around the complexity of introducing 1 or 2 languages at the same time has only so much to do with the end size of the student population. Like, that hadn't been a reason why I agreed with my colleagues on that. So I don't know if it actually changes anything for me.
That's fine.
I'm not comfortable imposing that as a condition. They have a year. If this is approved, they have a 1.5 years to come to this conclusion on their own.
So Steve, you would go with the conditions that as they're currently laid out without adding an additional one.
That's what I would propose.
Yeah. That's where I am as well. I don't know if how strongly other board members feel about adding an additional condition about 1 language.
Right. I think we can move forward with the proposed conditions and see where we land in terms of approval.
Yeah, for me, this is not something that would change my vote.
Yeah.
I agree with that. The founders have heard our concerns.
Yeah, that's right.
Let them exercise their good judgment.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Awesome.
And given that we've moved this is the first year that we've moved the cycle back a few months, which gives them a few additional months to prepare, that they can fully take into account what we've shared this evening. So if that's the case, then can I get a motion for how we move forward with Global Citizens?
I move to approve the charter application of Global Citizens with the conditions as proposed by staff.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. All right, I'm going to go through this again. Steve Bumbaugh.
Aye.
Ricarda.m.ganjam. Ricarda.m.ganjam. I see you, Ricarda.
She looks frozen.
She looks frozen. Okay, I'm going to move on. Jim Sandman.
Aye.
Naomi Shelton.
Aye.
Saba Bireda.
Aye.
Leah Crucy.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Ricarda, I'm going back to you. Oh, all right. Okay, well, we do have 5 of 6 votes in favor of the school. And she says she's lost her connection. The motion passes. Global Citizens, you have gotten your charter. We are very excited. And you've also heard from this board as to some of the considerations that one particular one that we'd like you to investigate and consider as you go about your planning in the next 16 months. I'd also say that now that you are approved, we'd encourage you to meet with education leaders, deputy mayor of education to talk about available facilities, coordinating school opening along with other education plans in the city. That time will be apparent as we come out of the next couple of weeks and months, but we're there to support as well to help make sure you are sort of thinking about locations as well as engaging the community as you get closer to identifying where you want to be. Pete has already shared with us the conditions, I think, and that closes out our charter applications for
Excuse me, Rick.
This year. Yep.
I had a text message from Ricarda that she supports the application. I'm not sure that meets the standard for a vote, but I thought just for the record, we should make sure that's on the record.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think I'm back.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
So
Okay. So 6 of 7 versus 5 of 6. The school still motion passes and the school is chartered. Excellent. Well, congratulations to that team. We'll move on to the final matter for this rather unusual virtual meeting, which is, are there any items from the consent calendar that any board members would like to remove or state a recusal for the record? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the items on the consent calendar.
I move to approve all items on the consent calendar.
Second.
A motion and a second. All right. Take roll call vote. Ricarda.m.ganjam.
Aye.
Jim Sandman.
Aye, with thanks to the staff for revising the improvement policy.
Excellent. Steve Bumbaugh.
Aye.
Naomi Shelton.
Aye.
Saba Bireda.
Aye.
Leah Crucy.
Aye.
And this is Rick Cruz and the aye. Okay, so that motion passes to approve all the items on the consent calendar. Any new business? All right. Before we request a motion to adjourn, I just wanted to again thank everyone for your forbearance as we've moved forward with this meeting virtually. And appreciate everyone who came out, both with matters before the PCSB, but also the public that testified on various matters. And as well, thank you to this board who continues to do this work in this context. So I will take a motion to adjourn at this point.
I move to adjourn the March 23rd, 2020 board meeting.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, and then roll call vote. A motion on the table to adjourn. Steve Bumbow.
Aye.
Ricarda.m.ganjam.
Aye.
Jim Sandman.
Aye.
Naomi Shelton.
Aye.
Saba Bireda.
Aye.
Leah Crucy.
Aye.
And Rick Cruz, yes. Aye. Thank you, everyone. Meeting is adjourned.
Stay safe, stay healthy.
Yes.
Thanks
Yes.
all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.